Chapter 41. Repeatedly Ignoring School Rules. Percy regretted it. Why did he follow them when he had nothing better to do? Just looking at Harry and Ron, he could tell they were involved. He wanted to give them a symbolic warning and then let them go. After all, it's awkward for a Gryffindor prefect to deduct points from his own house. Moreover, one of them was his younger brother, and the other was Gryffindor's star, making it even more difficult. But now, with a Slytherin present, could he show favoritism? Would people agree? Ahem. Percy put on an air of selflessness and asked, "You two, be honest. Did you do this?" Percy, "No, prefect. I don't know anything at all," Ron said eagerly, feeling wronged. But as soon as he finished, he looked at Harry in astonishment. If he didn't do it, then it could only be Harry. Sure enough, Harry nodded next. "It's none of Ron's business. I did it," Harry admitted. "Harry, you've disappointed me so much. You know, you're not supposed to be in the restricted section. You're committing a crime knowingly." Percy pointed at Harry bitterly. If it was just business, he would leave the dormitory in the middle of the night and enter the restricted area to read forbidden books. If both were added together, Gryffindor would lose a lot of points, and Harry would be locked up for a period of time, at least until the end of the holiday. Aaron stopped the angry Percy and said gently, "Actually, this matter is not small, but it is not big. In my opinion, there is no need to be so serious. It is common for first-year students to be unable to control their curiosity. It's the holiday period now, and Christmas just passed yesterday. Senior, don't hold him accountable. Just take it as a favor to me. And I see Harry knows he was wrong now, too." "You." Percy hesitated to speak, but he understood what Aaron meant. Aaron wanted to spare Harry this time. Although Percy didn't quite understand it, he had no reason to refuse. "Okay, but there still needs to be a necessary punishment. Otherwise, he won't learn his lesson," Percy said very seriously. "Then let Harry copy the school rules during the holidays, the one with the general outline and details," Aaron suggested. "Let Ron supervise it himself." Harry didn't speak, just nodded weakly. There was no way around it. He had violated the school rules. It would be easy to say if he hadn't been caught, but since he was, he had to admit it. Ron complained a bit. "That school rule book is so thick, Harry couldn't finish copying it during the holidays." "That's your business," Aaron shrugged indifferently. "Okay, it's settled. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first," Percy said, then quickly stood up and walked towards the door of the lounge, not wanting to stay a moment longer. After Percy left, Ron pouted. Copying the school rules is too much. Aaron couldn't deny it, but compared to Gryffindor losing points, I think Harry would prefer to copy the school rules. "I told you before to let Percy leave, but you two are quite stubborn. What can I do?" "We didn't know you came here with evidence. Besides, it's Percy who wants to listen." Harry immediately covered Ron's mouth. "Stop talking. I'm willing to be punished. Compared to the punishment in the school regulations, this is very light. It's good to know, but don't be pessimistic. I told Ron to supervise. Why is it not up to you to copy? Even if a word is not written, who would know?" Harry and Ron glanced at each other, and the sadness on their faces disappeared in an instant. They both showed meaningful smiles, like scoundrels who had successfully cheated. "That's right, the punishment is fixed, but how to carry it out is up to them." Given their relationship, there seems to be no difference between this punishment and no punishment. Ahem. Aaron sat on the sofa, crossing his legs. "I really didn't expect Harry to be so courageous. You should really copy the school rules. I warned you, it's not a place for first years to be wandering around. Do you know what punishment you feet ace if caught by Filch? The points Hermione earned for Gryffindor this semester won't be enough to cover the deductions for this violation of discipline." "Sorry." Harry lowered his head in shame. He didn't regret venturing into the restricted area yesterday. He just regretted not being more careful. "Don't tell me you're sorry. I'm from Slytherin, and whether or not Gryffindor loses points has nothing to do with me. I just don't want to see her lose her temper when she comes back from vacation." Aaron's eyes exuded a sharp look, making both Harry and Ron feel a bit pressured. "So, is it time to explain what happened in the restricted section? Harry, what happened to you? How did you manage to drop a lantern to the ground?" "The books over there are a bit different." Harry hesitated, as the bad memories of last night resurfaced. Everything was going well at first. He wandered the restricted area, looking for clues related to Nicholas Flamel. But after opening a book, a hideous and terrifying human face spewed out from it. The words in the book kept swimming on this human face, which looked very strange. In particular, this human face made a shrill cry, as if it was about to rush out of the book. In the middle of the night, when an 11-year-old child encounters such a creepy thing, it would be a lie to say he wasn't afraid. It must be different. Otherwise, why would it be called a banned book? Aaron rolled his eyes, a little speechless. Not only that, I also met Mrs. Norris and Filch. I almost got caught. Sk. Then your luck is really good. But I'm curious how you broke into the restricted area in the middle of the night. Although Mrs. Pince's management is a little lax during the holidays, it's impossible for you to get in so easily. Harry's heart skipped a beat, but after hesitating for a moment, he decided to tell Aaron about the invisibility cloak. He knew that showing off his cleverness in front of a smart person would only bring shame on himself. And Aaron had regarded him as a friend just now, so it wasn't impossible to tell him. But before he could speak, Ron said it for him. It should be the invisibility cloak. It's Harry's father's relic. Invisibility cloak. Aaron became a little interested. The rarity of that item was no less than his magic carpet. That's a very rare magic item, but I don't want to use it unless necessary in the future. In the eyes of some great magicians, this magical item is useless. Oh, Harry suddenly realized. No wonder I was almost found by Snape yesterday. Snape, Professor. Both Aaron and Ron were a little surprised. They knew Harry went to the restricted area to find information about Nicholas Flamel, but Snape didn't need to go there at night. Harry, what happened last night? Aaron asked seriously. I just saw Professor Snape seem to be bullying Professor Quirrell, saying, I'm not your enemy, you better find out who your allegiance is. I don't know what it means, but I can be sure that Snape definitely has a dark secret, Harry said while paying attention to Aaron's expression. He thought Snape was not a good person and wanted to steal something guarded by Momo. Now he was just giving Aaron a heads up. No matter how much Aaron respected Snape, he should be a little wary after hearing this. Sure enough, Aaron's face became cloudy and uncertain, and a stone in Harry's heart fell to the ground. But what Harry didn't know was that Aaron didn't doubt Snape. He wondered if Snape knew that Quirrell had Voldemort's remnant soul in him. If Snape didn't know, then it didn't matter. At most, he had discovered some small movements of Quirrell and issued a warning. But if Snape knew, it meant that Voldemort had fallen into a trap from the very beginning, and the danger of Aaron's subsequent tasks would be greatly reduced. Either way, it was in his favor. Harry, God knows about this matter. You know it, we know it, and no one else should. Also be quiet during this period of time. Don't make any more mistakes, understand? Understood. I know how serious this is, Harry replied. By the way, I found a magical mirror on the first floor when I was leaving. I actually saw my parents in the mirror. What? Ron exclaimed, surprised. Why didn't you tell me this important information earlier? You really should have taken me there last night. There's still a chance, said Harry. You can come with me tonight. Aaron, are you coming? I can introduce my parents to you. Maybe you can see what your family looks like, too. Aaron was taken aback. Wait, what I said just now was meaningless. One violation of school rules is fine, but now you want to add Ron and drag me into this, too? Isn't this a bit reckless? Chapter 42. On the second night, Harry, Ron, and Aaron huddled under the invisibility cloak, carefully navigating through the corridors. They climbed an unknown number of stairs and finally arrived at an empty classroom. The room was full of dust, resembling a place where debris was piled up. Besides a pile of tables and chairs, a particularly tall mirror stood against the wall. This is it. This is the mirror I was talking about, Harry said eagerly, removing the invisibility cloak and pointing excitedly at the clean mirror. Do you see it? These are my parents. But I only see the three of us, Ron replied, puzzled. Change your angle and stand over here, Harry instructed, pulling Ron over to get a better view. Okay, see them now? Just as Harry was about to point out his parents in the mirror, Ron shouted excitedly, That's me! I'm the head of the boys' union, and I'm holding the Quidditch cup. It's amazing! I also became the Quidditch captain. Harry, can this mirror show future events? How is that possible? Harry said, lowering his head regretfully. My parents are both dead. It's really impossible, Aaron interjected meaningfully. This is definitely not something from the future. Aaron, what about you? What do you see? Ron asked with interest. Let me see. Aaron walked to the front of the mirror, and Harry and Ron stepped aside to give him space. 10 seconds later, Aaron stroked his chin, lost in thought. How could this be? What did you see? Harry asked. Aaron shook his head. Unfortunately, I only see myself. The mirror treats people differently. You mean you don't see your parents like Harry, and you don't become the president of the student union like me? Ron said in surprise, then patted Aaron's shoulder sympathetically. You can only see yourself? Such a magical item is of no use to you. Can you move your hands away? Aaron rolled his eyes and pointed to the golden frame of the mirror. You guys better look at the words engraved on this mirror. Eris Stella Uru Ayit is incomparable, Kafru Idion Vorhis. Aaron read the words aloud. Obviously, this is a string of garbled characters. Such a person may not be found in the entire magical world, but this is not a person's name. It's a sentence introducing this mirror. You can find out by spelling the letters of these words backwards. Harry and Ron glanced at each other, then looked at the frame of the mirror simultaneously. They said in unison, It shows us the deepest and most desperate desires in our hearts. So the mirror lets us see what we want to see? Harry asked. That's right, Aaron confirmed. But how can you only see yourself? Ron asked curiously. Then he thought of something and opened his mouth in astonishment. You don't have something you desire, right? That's too pitiful. No, you can't say that, Aaron shook his head. As long as you are human, you will have desires. I can't be without desires, but my desires cannot be reflected in the mirror. Sounds great. So what is your desire? Ron asked. Aaron froze for a moment, then turned around and gave Ron a meaningful smile. Do you think I should tell you? This is personal privacy. Ron smiled awkwardly. I didn't mean anything else, just curious. Then please put away your curiosity. Aaron, can you make room for me first? Harry asked with some embarrassment. I still want to see my parents. They are gone, and maybe I can only see them through this mirror. Okay. Aaron stepped aside and made a pleased gesture. Thank you, Harry said simply, then stood quietly in front of the mirror. His eyes gradually became gentle, and he reached out to caress the mirror, a faint smile on his face. The beauty and warmth of being reunited with his family were beyond words, but to Aaron and Ron, Harry's expression seemed a little silly. 10 minutes later, Ron hesitated to speak and asked with some concern, Is he going to be okay? No, it's just that he can't extricate himself for a while after seeing his deepest desire, Aaron replied. Seeing the family affection I long for most in my heart. But you have to be careful not to let him sink deeper and deeper. No matter how beautiful the things you see in the mirror are, they are always illusions. Simply remembering and motivating yourself is enough, but wasting time on fantasies is the greatest tragedy. You're preaching. No, what you said made a lot of sense. But why should I pay attention? Is there even a need to ask? You are Harry Potter's best friend, inseparable all day long. Who else is more suitable than you? Ron opened his mouth and stood up straight with pride. You are right. As his best friend, I have to pull him out. With that said, Ron walked up to Harry and grabbed his arm. Harry, you need to rest. Let me watch it for a while. No, you're almost seeing yourself in, Ron said righteously. Let me watch for a while. Puff. Hearing this, Aaron almost lost his breath. This Nima is the so-called best friend? I thought it was so deep. Result. That's it? The plastic brotherhood is a bit disappointing. Ahem. Although it's a little unpleasant, I still want to disturb you. It's time for us to go. If you don't sleep at night, come here to look at a broken mirror. Aren't you bored? Harry and Ron looked at each other, then shook their heads in unison. Although they knew that the things in the mirror were fake, the comfort to the soul was so great that they naturally wanted to look at it for a while. Aaron held his forehead and shook his head. It's my biggest failure this semester to see this broken mirror with you two. Ha! Don't say that! Ron smiled awkwardly. Why don't you come over and try again? Maybe you can see your desire. That's not necessary. I prefer to be down to earth than to be in the mirror, and I hope you are too, Aaron said, then ignored Harry and Ron's weird expressions and walked towards the door on his own. I'll go first, and I wish you two good night. Wait a minute, Harry called hastily. You don't have an invisibility cloak, so it's not safe to go out. I have my method. Aaron took out a transparent bottle, invisibility potion, meaningfully, then pushed open the door and walked out. I always feel that he is sometimes more serious than my mother, Ron said with a twitching corner of his mouth. Harry nodded and was about to speak when he heard a boom. The door opened suddenly, and Aaron ran over in a panic. Then what? I think we have to leave, but we may have to hide before then. Why? I haven't seen enough, Harry said reluctantly. That's right, I haven't watched it yet. I saw Mrs. Norris. Is that enough reason? Ron was startled for a moment and asked nervously, You mean that cat? Filch's one? If not? As soon as the words fell, the three heard cat meowing. Harry and Ron trembled subconsciously. Without any nonsense, they pulled up the invisibility cloak decisively and covered Aaron in it by the way. After a while, a light yellow light appeared at the door, and Filch walked in with a lantern. He looked carefully at the classroom, but did not find any students who violated the rules. Let's go, dear. There is nothing unusual here. Mrs. Norris let out a meow, unwillingly, and took a few steps towards the position of the invisibility cloak. At this moment, the three of them held their breath tacitly and stepped back at the same time. Filch frowned slightly and looked in front of Mrs. Norris. There is no one. Maybe you made a mistake. When they left, the three of them breathed a sigh of relief. Aaron emerged from the cloak. I think we can go back now. Should be. Ron nodded resentfully. He was so taken aback just now that he didn't want to stay any longer. Harry was still a little reluctant. He stroked the mirror of Erised slowly. I think I can look at it for a while. Filch probably won't be back in a short time. Heh, Aaron smiled speechlessly. Harry Potter, you are really smart, and you are so confident in violating school rules. Have you ever wondered what if Filch suddenly turned back? That is right, Harry, Ron added. Being caught by Filch is not a good thing. We've already made Percy angry once, and if we get caught this time, we'll be too ashamed to face him. But, no buts, Aaron interrupted. This mirror isn't going anywhere. You can come back to see it any time later, but right now, we need to go back. Ron nodded hurriedly to Harry. Whether he wanted to or not, he grabbed Harry by the arm and pulled him towards the door. Chapter 43. Nicholas Flamel, Maker of the Sorcerer's Stone. The Mirror of Erised is a magical artifact that deeply captivated Harry Potter, causing him to spend most of his time and energy on feudal fantasies. For several days, Harry would visit the classroom where the mirror was kept whenever he had free time. He would sit alone in front of it, staring at the reflection of his parents, lost in a daze. Although he knew the images were not real, he still found solace in them. On the third night, Dumbledore appeared in the classroom. You're here again, Harry? Dumbledore's voice came from the window, his shadow cast on the wall next to Harry by the moonlight. Startled by the sudden appearance, Harry turned around quickly and then stood obediently beside the mirror, silent. It seems to me that you, like many others, have found the Mirror of Erised to be quite enchanting. I'm sure you understand its magic by now. Dumbledore said as he walked slowly towards Harry. Let me give you a hint. The happiest person in the world would see only himself in this mirror, just as he is. I know, Harry replied. Just like the inscription on the mirror says, it shows us the deepest and most desperate desires of our hearts. Hearing this, Dumbledore smiled approvingly. Harry, you are a bit more perceptive than I thought. Harry scratched his head in embarrassment. Actually, I didn't figure this out on my own. It was... He hesitated, remembering that Aaron had followed him secretly. Revealing this might get them both in trouble. Oh, it seems there are others besides you who have seen this mirror. Harry, can you tell me who it is? Dumbledore asked, his kind smile putting Harry at ease. Harry sighed in relief, thinking the situation might not be as serious as he feared. Then you have to promise me you won't tell anyone or punish him. Of course, I fully understand your desire to protect your friend. To be honest, sneaking over to look in the mirror in the middle of the night isn't a big deal, especially since you haven't been caught by Filch. It means you didn't do anything wrong, Dumbledore reassured him. Harry was momentarily stunned, unable to believe such words came from the headmaster. What? Surprised? I used to be a Gryffindor too, and breaking school rules was commonplace. But for your own sake, you should refrain from doing such things in the future. If you get caught, I can only do so much to help. It depends on the situation. Okay, Harry felt much relieved. Headmaster, I'll tell you, Aaron was the one who first discovered the secret of this mirror. Aaron? Aaron Gaius? Dumbledore's expression froze for a moment before returning to normal. I know him. He's impeccable on the Quidditch pitch. Yes, that's him. And Professor, he saw only himself in front of this mirror. Really? It seems I will need to pay more attention to this exceptional young wizard in the future, Dumbledore said with a smile. Meanwhile, in the Slytherin dormitory, Aaron sneezed violently, waking from a deep sleep. He shivered involuntarily. Why does it feel like someone is staring at me? Aaron muttered to himself before tightening his quilt and going back to sleep. Harry, you must remember that this mirror does not give us knowledge or truth. People waste their time in front of it, even go mad, Dumbledore warned, a hint of threat in his voice that made Harry turn his head guiltily. So, I will have this mirror moved tomorrow. I must advise you not to seek it out again. Dwelling on dreams and forgetting to live will do you no good. Harry nodded silently, then put on his invisibility cloak and left the classroom. Dumbledore slowly closed the door and looked at himself in the mirror of Erised, seeing a radiant old man holding a pair of thick woolen socks. Aaron Gaius, a Slytherin, or a member of the Gaius family, is a bit difficult to handle. I hope it doesn't affect my plans. Otherwise, just a few adjustments, Dumbledore mused, a wise light flashing in his eyes. He then slightly raised his hand and put away the mirror of Erised. As the holiday ended, the snow covering Hogwarts gradually melted away, and students of all grades returned to the castle to resume their studies. In the library, Aaron opened the dragon illustrated book sent by Jins and introduced Abe to his kind, holding the small dragon in his arms. Across from him, Draco was also reading a book, while his two companions had fallen asleep on the table. Aaron, I really don't understand why you show Abe books about dragons. It would be better to read about cats, Draco remarked. As soon as the words left his mouth, Abe jumped onto the table and bared his teeth at Draco. If it weren't for the presence of so many people, Abe would have certainly flown up and slapped Draco with his wings to assert the dignity of a dragon. Draco, feeling embarrassed, smiled awkwardly. At that moment, Hermione passed behind Draco, carrying a thick old book. When she saw Aaron, she paused. Aaron, can you come here for a moment? I have something to ask you. Oh, Aaron replied, carrying Abe and closing the dragon illustrated book. Draco, don't wait for me for a while. Understood, Draco responded. Hermione led Aaron to an empty table and placed the book she was holding on the table. She hesitated for a moment before saying, I found information about Nicholas Flamel. Wow, Aaron raised his eyebrows and smiled. This is great news. Harry and Ron have been coming to the library every day, but they always leave disappointed. I was worried for them. Did you find information about Nicholas Flamel in this book? That's right. This is what I planned to do during the Christmas vacation, Hermione said, turning to the introduction of Nicholas Flamel. Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone is a magical substance with amazing powers. It can turn any metal into gold and also produce the elixir of life, which grants immortality. The last surviving Philosopher's Stone belongs to the famous alchemist Nicholas Flamel, who celebrated his 665th birthday last year. Aaron's mouth twitched. It's a bit exaggerated to say that the Philosopher's Stone can make people live forever, but I never thought he lived for more than 600 years. That's not the point. The point is Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone, Hermione said, looking conflicted. I don't know if I should tell Harry and the others about Nicholas Flamel's identity. This involves such a priceless treasure as the Philosopher's Stone. The situation is too complicated. Well, I think you should tell them. Sooner or later, they will find out about Nicholas Flamel. Since it can't be kept secret, it's better to tell them in advance. It will save some effort. Aaron advised. It seems to be the only way, Hermione agreed. You didn't find Nicholas Flamel because of the Philosopher's Stone, did you? Aaron asked. Hermione hesitated for a moment, then nodded. You should be able to guess it too. The Philosopher's Stone is at the school, and someone is trying to steal it? Aaron inquired. Yes, the Philosopher's Stone was originally in Gringotts, but is now kept by Professor Dumbledore in a room on the 4th floor, guarded by a 3-headed dog. Harry and the others suspect that Snape wants to steal it, Hermione explained. It's normal for them to think that. After all, Professor Snape is the only one at Hogwarts who is openly hostile to them. There are 2 things we can be sure of. First, the people behind the scenes haven't succeeded yet, and second, there must be more than just a 3-headed dog guarding the stone, Aaron concluded. In the hidden place of the Philosopher's Stone, there must be other defensive measures. That artifact is too precious. What if the dog accidentally falls asleep? Aaron, do you want to tell Professor Dumbledore about this? Hermione asked. It's better not to, Aaron interrupted her immediately. At least, now is not the time. Why? Hermione was puzzled. First of all, you don't have any evidence to prove that someone is planning to steal the Philosopher's Stone, let alone direct evidence that the person planning to steal it is Professor Snape. Second, how did you know there was a Philosopher's Stone in the school? This should be considered a secret. Don't tell me you're just guessing. Hermione pursed her lips. Hagrid accidentally let it slip. Wonderful, Aaron said, shaking his head in exasperation. If you tell Dumbledore, Hagrid will be punished, no doubt about it. And there's a more important point. Once you tell Dumbledore, you might alert the thief. You must understand that the Philosopher's Stone is protected by multiple layers of defenses. If they decide to move it, the defensive power will be greatly reduced, giving someone an opportunity to steal it. Chapter 44. Hagrid's Curiosity about Aber. After listening to Aaron's analysis, Hermione fell silent. She knew Aaron was right, but didn't that mean there was nothing they could do? But according to what you say, we can only wait? She asked. You can't say that. You don't have to participate at all, and you can respond to all changes with the same, Aaron replied. Noticing Hermione's unfriendly gaze, Aaron shrugged. Okay, no kidding. All you can do now is look for evidence. It is best to confirm who is behind this. As long as there is definite evidence, all problems will be solved. Hermione frowned slightly. It's not easy at all. No, actually, it's not as difficult as you think. Because you know someone is going to steal the stone, you know where the stone is, and you know who is guarding that place. In other words, you have a certain degree of initiative. Hermione suddenly realized, and the sadness on her face dissipated a bit. Yes, if this person wants to steal the Philosopher's Stone, he must go through the 3-headed dog. Which means, Hagrid. Aaron snapped his fingers. It seems you know what to do. Well, as long as Hagrid doesn't reveal the way through the 3-headed dog, the Philosopher's Stone is still safe. Once he leaks it, it means that the people behind the scenes have already started to act. Hermione nodded resolutely. That's right, Hermione. You're smarter than I thought. Hermione smiled shyly, a blush appearing on her face. After hesitating for a while, she made a decision. Aaron, I want you to help us. Can you? Me? Aaron's face had a strange look. It's not impossible, but Harry and the others probably won't agree to someone who is close to Snape joining your plan. Then keep it from them for now, said Hermione. You're wiser than all of us, and we'll be able to relax a lot with your help. I beg you. Okay, Aaron shook his head with a wry smile. I'm really not very good at rejecting beautiful girls' requests. Hee hee. Hermione smiled shyly, then picked up her book. Then I'll go to Harry and the others first. They have been looking for Nicholas Flamel for so long, and now they should get their wish. Wait, Aaron suddenly stopped her. I still think I should tell you some guesses. Since someone wants to get the idea of the Sorcerer's Stone, he must be an insider, which is an important clue. In other words, the other party is not an ordinary student, understand? Hermione was stunned for a moment, her pretty face becoming a little heavy. You mean there is an inside thief? I didn't say that, but it's a possibility. So besides Hagrid and Dumbledore, it's best not to trust anyone, especially the professors of the academy. If it happened to hit the muzzle of the gun, it would be a sad reminder. Got it, said Hermione, picking up her book and walking down the aisle. This can be regarded as a reminder to them. Aaron stroked Abe in his arms, then put the dragon illustration book on the table and continued to teach it to identify its own kind. When he turned to the Norwegian ridgeback, he suddenly noticed a shadow on the desk. Looking up, he saw the giant Hagrid looking at them with a smile, his bushy beard trembling. "Hagrid, it's really strange to see you in the library. I guess you were looking for books about pets? Is that cutie in the Forbidden Forest getting naughty again?" Aaron asked. "How is it possible? They are all very cute," Hagrid replied. "Then what are you doing in the library?" Aaron inquired. "I'm just looking around," Hagrid said hesitantly, but Aaron was keenly aware that his gaze was on his dragon-illustrated book from time to time. "Do you want this illustrated book?" Aaron asked meaningfully. "How come?" Hagrid sneered. "Okay, I really want to see it. The things recorded in your book are very detailed, such as habits, diet, hatching guide, etc., which are more detailed than any other book in the library. So, can you—" Before Aaron could speak, Abe jumped directly onto the illustrated book, pressed his white paws on it, and shook his head vigorously. I'm afraid it won't work. As you can see, our Abe is very possessive. It doesn't agree to give it to you, and I can't help it." "Okay," Hagrid nodded regretfully. "Then when can you finish reading it?" "As far as I know, there is a time limit for borrowing books in the library. If you finish it, please let me know as soon as possible, or I could speak to Mrs. Pintz now and ask her to reserve the book for me once you're done." Hearing this, Abe, who had only shown displeasure before, began to grit his teeth. He closed the illustrated book angrily and squatted on it, covering it with his body. "Hagrid." "Aaron, I can see it's reluctant, but this is the property of the school after all." "Wow!" Abe let out a low, angry moan that didn't sound like a cat. Both Hagrid and Aaron, who were very close, heard it. "This is—" Hagrid's eyes lit up, staring at the tightly wrapped white cat in front of him with infinite interest. "Damn!" Exposed. Aaron cursed silently and immediately held down Abe's dragon head, then hugged him tightly, covering his mouth to prevent any more sounds. Ab, though uncomfortable, knew he had exposed his true nature and cooperated with Aaron. "Aaron, this cat of yours seems a bit different," Hagrid said meaningfully, his two huge palms moving slowly towards Abe, as if afraid of scaring him. "What do you want to do?" Aaron asked with an unfriendly expression. Hagrid's demeanor made him wary. Hagrid withdrew his hands, smiling awkwardly. "I'm just curious. Yes, curious. My knowledge of animals is extensive, but this is the first time I've seen such a special cat." Hagrid paused, looking around cautiously. "Aaron, is it possible that Abe is not a cat? The sound he made just now is definitely not something any cat of any breed can make." "I don't understand what you're talking about. Abe is just an ordinary white cat who has been with me since he was born." I understand. Hagrid lowered his voice. "Is it possible that Abe looks like a cat but is actually another species? I mean, a rare breed within the cat category. You know, taking care of such a rare breed requires special attention. If you need help, I'd be happy to assist." "I won't trouble you with that," Aaron interrupted. He knew Hagrid's sweet words masked a desire for his dragon. "Ha-ha! I was just saying that casually." Hagrid laughed, then remembered his own business. "Aaron, when will you finish reading this illustrated book?" "I don't know. This book was sent by an uncle of mine and is not the property of the school, so don't think about it." Hagrid was taken aback, not having considered this possibility. "Then can you lend it to me for a few days after you finish? I need it urgently." Aaron looked at the honest giant playfully. "Since when did you become so interested in dragons?" "I've always been particularly interested in dragons," Hagrid explained, averting his eyes. "There are many magical creatures in the Forbidden Forest, but no dragons. To be honest, I've always wanted to raise a dragon, but the conditions weren't right, and the Ministry of Magic wouldn't allow it. So I can only learn about them through books to satisfy my curiosity." "Is that so?" "I don't know when I'll finish it, but I promise to lend it to you once I'm done," Aaron said, hugging Abe tightly. He picked up the illustrated book on the table and left along the corridor. Hagrid squinted, watching Aaron's retreating back, and murmured to himself, "It's definitely not a cat, but what kind of species is it? Or is it a magical creature that has never appeared before? How curious! I have to find a way to borrow it and take a closer look. Chapter 45, The Blame on Snape. Hermione told Harry and Ron that what Fluffy was guarding was the Sorcerer's Stone. Both of them were shocked upon learning about the stone's effects. It's no wonder Snape wanted to steal it, Ron said, his tone casual. Owning that stone is equivalent to having endless wealth. And a long life, Harry added. Hermione rolled her eyes silently. These two always seemed to blame Professor Snape for everything. Ahem, now we know that what Fluffy guards is the Sorcerer's Stone, and... Hermione paused slightly, and someone wants to steal it. Correction, it's none other than Snape, Ron insisted. We don't have 100% proof that it was Professor Snape who wanted to steal it. Almost everyone wants the Sorcerer's Stone, right? What more evidence do you need? Ron sneered. He almost wrote his motives on his face. Besides, we saw him hex Harry on the Quidditch field. Doesn't that make sense? Harry nodded in agreement. At present, Snape was the only one suspected, and he was making things difficult for them. Who else could it be? Okay. Hermione shook her head, pretending to give in, seeing the determined looks on their faces. If Snape wants to steal it, the first level he has to pass is Fluffy, and passing a three-headed dog is very dangerous, so we have to pay attention to Hagrid. If Snape asks Hagrid about it indirectly, then that means he's going to act. Harry's eyes lit up. He suddenly felt that Hermione was not just a bookworm, but also sharp in analyzing problems. That's right. Not only that, the stone is too precious. There must be more than Fluffy guarding it. Dumbledore must have set up other checkpoints. Maybe Snape was also involved. Otherwise, how would he know about the Sorcerer's Stone? Ron was astonished. I always thought you could draw inferences only during exams. I didn't expect you to think so much. It would be a pity if you didn't become an Auror after graduation. Hermione felt a bit embarrassed. This was all analyzed by Aaron, and she was just explaining it. But now the credit seemed to fall on her, which made her uncomfortable. Let's not talk about that. All in all, the situation is not as bad as we thought. At least there won't be any surprises with the Sorcerer's Stone for a short time. That's good. Harry breathed a sigh of relief. Let me tell you about our current plan. First, keep an eye on Snape. Understood, Ron responded immediately. This is easy. He's the one I see the most every day. Hermione rolled her eyes but nodded. Second, find a way to learn from Hagrid who else is involved in the protection of the Sorcerer's Stone. If Snape wants to get it, he will definitely find a way to break other levels. If we figure this out, we can understand his progress. Thirdly, it's still Hagrid. We must always pay attention to whether he has told others about the method of passing Fluffy. Don't forget there is a fourth point, Hermione reminded. We have to prepare for the exam. Exam. Harry and Ron glanced at each other, suddenly feeling overwhelmed. They were not very good students, and exams were a necessary hurdle in life for them, and also the saddest. It can't be, Hermione, Ron said awkwardly. The holiday just ended, and the exam is still far away. Then you have to prepare a review plan. Hermione's tone was firm. We've already wasted too much time on Nicholas Flamel. If you don't make up for the knowledge in class, you might not pass the final exam. Are you going to fail? Ron seemed to hear a big joke. If it wasn't for the fact that they were in the library, he would have laughed out loud. Harry also held back his laughter. Hermione, apart from Aaron, you are the least likely to fail at Hogwarts. You know everything. You don't need to review at all. I don't need to review? It seems you've forgotten that Draco and I still have a bet. If I lose, Aaron will have to pay a favor on behalf of the family. Although my understanding of the magical world isn't as good as yours, I know how our tant a family bet is. Unfortunately, Draco has been working very hard lately, and even Professor McGonagall, who isn't fond of Slytherin, praised him. So do you want to see Draco triumph? Harry and Ron immediately became serious. Malfoy was the person they hated the most, even more than Snape. If Hermione's inadvertent defeat made him successful, they would be very depressed before the start of the second year. Facing Malfoy in the future would put them at an absolute disadvantage because the strongest Hermione on their side had lost. Thinking of this, their eyes were full of seriousness. Hermione, I think what you said is very reasonable, Harry said. Studying is the most important thing for students, and we cannot neglect it. I think so too, Ron said solemnly. Hermione sighed. She had worked so hard to explain, but in the end, it was the mention of Malfoy that convinced them. She could only blame herself for making friends carelessly. As a top student, Hermione quickly made a review plan for the two of them, generously gave them her notes, and supervised their study very carefully. The teachers also cooperated by giving various homework assignments. Study hard and make progress every day became the norm in their free time, making the two boys miserable. But even in the face of this academic storm, they still devoted most of their energy to supervising Snape and Hagrid. A few weeks later, at the gamekeeper's cabin, Harry, Ron, and Hermione visited Hagrid as usual. This was the 8th time they had come to see him recently. The first time they visited, they told him straight to the point that they knew Mau Mau was guarding the Philosopher's Stone. Every time after that, they would inadvertently mention, "Has anyone asked how to pass the three-headed dog?" But Hagrid's answer always reassured them, "No one knows how to pass Mau Mau except me and Dumbledore, and I will never tell anyone else." Snape didn't show any abnormalities either. He always had a stern face and was sometimes very irritable, but the more he acted this way, the more relieved Harry and Ron felt. It meant the Philosopher's Stone was still safe, and Snape hadn't gotten it yet. This time, they planned to ask other questions. "Hagrid," Harry hesitated for a moment, then asked, "We want to know what other protections guard the Sorcerer's Stone besides Mau Mau." Hagrid's expression became serious instantly. "Why do you care so much about this?" "Harry, I seriously remind you again that this has nothing to do with you." "So that means there are really other protections?" Hermione asked. "Like spells, magic, etc.? "I can't say that. It's a very important secret," Hagrid frowned. "Of course, I don't know either." Hermione pondered for a while. "Then do you know who designed those traps?" "I know that. It's—" Hagrid began to smile smugly, but then his face became serious again. "I almost got tricked by you again, Hermione. It would be very troublesome to say this." "But it's not that much trouble," pleaded Harry. "Please, Hagrid, tell us. We already know about the Philosopher's Stone, and it's not far behind." "Don't worry about it, Harry." Hagrid pushed Harry onto a chair with a smile. "Since I accidentally leaked about Nicholas Flamel, you guys have become more and more lawless." "But someone is already trying to steal the Philosopher's Stone," Ron interjected. "We're sure it's Snape." Hermione curled her lips but stopped talking. She wanted to say not sure, but nothing came out. "Snape?" Hagrid was taken aback. "I know almost all Gryffindors don't like him, but that's not a reason to doubt him, and Snape was one of the people who helped design the protections. There's no way he could have stolen it if he designed those traps," Harry said grimly. "It's much easier for him to steal." "Hagrid, he really doesn't know how to get through Momo?" Hermione asked. "I've said it more than a dozen times. No one knows except me and Dumbledore," Hagrid replied impatiently. "Hagrid, you should tell us," Hermione insisted, point-eye, G to Ron and Harry. "You don't think they will give up so easily?" Hagrid looked at the two of them, seeing their eyes full of determination. He sighed helplessly. "Okay, but I have a small condition. Aaron's pet cat, Abe, you can borrow it from me." Chapter 46, How to Abduct a Cat. "What?" Hermione immediately stood up, glaring at Hagrid with disbelief. "This is absolutely not allowed. I don't agree. And Hagrid, how could you even think of such a thing? Stealing a cat. Thank you for thinking it out." "Hush." Hagrid made a shushing gesture, looking at the three of them with embarrassment. "I didn't say stealing, but borrowing. Borrowing the cat." "Impossible," Hermione said, exasperated. "Hagrid, I don't think you understand how much Aaron cares for Abe. He treats Abe like a baby. He takes him to class, during meals, even when he sleeps. He never leaves him." Hagrid nodded. "I've also secretly inquired about it, which is why I'm asking you." "But," Harry was puzzled, "what do you need a cat for? There are so many cats in the school. Can't we just use another one?" "Ha!" Hagrid laughed triumphantly. "You don't understand. I have a special intuition about animals. When you first came to Hogwarts, I noticed that cat wasn't ordinary." "No matter how special it is, it's still just a cat," Ron said. "No, it's more than that. The pattern is too unique. I even suspect it's not a cat at all," Hagrid said firmly. "You guys have been around Ab more than I have. You should be able to sense that the little guy's intelligence is unusually high." It's not just an ordinary glutton, Ron murmured. Greedy? Hagrid's interest was piqued. What does it usually eat? Everything. Candy, biscuits, cakes, puddings, chocolate, potatoes, but mostly chicken legs. 5 times out of 10, it's holding a drumstick and gnawing on it, Ron said, suddenly realizing. My God, my life is actually worse than that of a cat? Harry patted Ron on the shoulder sympathetically. Both of them had difficult lives compared to Abe, the cat. See, you can tell Abe is special just from his diet. Do ordinary cats have such a good appetite? Hagrid said. This shows that Aaron attaches great importance to Abe, Hermione said, shaking her head. Hagrid, I advise you not to think about it. I never intended to harm him. Anyone who knows me knows I never abuse animals. I sincerely regard them as friends. I'm just curious and want to take a closer look. If you don't believe me, you can watch from the sidelines, Hagrid explained. Harry shook his head with a wry smile. Hagrid, it's not that we don't trust you. It's just that it's too embarrassing, Ron finished. Yes, it's too embarrassing, Harry agreed. Losing face is secondary, Hermione said, her face turning serious. What's more important is that it will make Aaron's favorability towards us plummet. That's right, Harry added. Hagrid, why don't you borrow it yourself? If I could, I wouldn't be asking you, Hagrid said helplessly. Since I showed interest in Abe in the library last time, Aaron has been very wary of me. That's even worse. If Ab goes missing, you'll be the first person Aaron suspects, Hermione pointed out. That's why I need you to borrow him. I've inquired, and aside from a few substitute professors at Hogwarts, Draco has the best relationship with Aaron. But he won't help me. He might even inform Aaron. So I thought of you 3. You can still talk to him in Gryffindor, Hagrid said with a hopeful smile. A few seconds later, he noticed the 3 of them were silent and sighed. It doesn't matter if you don't want to help me. There will be other opportunities, but those who participated in the design of those institutions. Wait, Hagrid, Harry interrupted, making a decision. We can help with this. Harry? Hermione interrupted, shaking her head at him with a worried expression. Hermione, I know what I'm saying. The importance of the Philosopher's Stone and a pet cat is clear at a glance, Harry said firmly. I agree with Harry, Ron added. We're borrowing, not stealing, and will supervise Hagrid throughout the whole process to ensure Abe is safe. So naturally, there is a bond between us. But I must say, he can be quite a handful at times. Harry and Ron exchanged a knowing glance, our plans slowly taking shape. Aaron, Harry began cautiously, we were wondering if we could help you take care of Abe for a bit. You know, give you a break and let us spend some time with him. Aaron looked at them skeptically. Why the sudden interest in Abe? Ron quickly chimed in. Well, we just think he's an amazing cat, and we'd love to get to know him better. Plus, it might be fun for him to have some new company. Aaron considered their request for a moment. All right, but only for a short while. Abe is very special to me, and I don't want anything to happen to him. Of course, Harry and Ron said in unison, their faces lighting up with excitement. As they left the Great Hall with Abe in tow, Harry whispered to Ron, This is going to work. We just need to keep him happy and then get the information we need from Hagrid. Ron nodded. Yeah, but let's make sure we don't mess this up. Hermione will never let us hear the end of it if we do. Meanwhile, Hermione, who had been watching from a distance, sighed. She hoped that Harry and Ron knew what they were doing. She couldn't shake the feeling that this plan was bound to backfire. Back in Hagrid's hut, the half-giant was busy tending to his various magical creatures. He looked up as Harry and Ron approached with Abe. Well, look who it is, and you've brought Abe with you. How's he doing? He's great, Hagrid, Harry replied. We thought we'd give Aaron a break and take care of him for a bit. Hagrid smiled warmly. That's mighty kind of you. Just make sure you keep an eye on him. He's a clever one, that Abe. We will, Ron assured him. By the way, Hagrid, we were hoping you could tell us more about the Sorcerer's Stone mechanism. It's really important. Hagrid's expression turned serious. I told you, lads, it's a secret, but if you promise not to tell anyone, I might be able to share a bit. Harry and Ron nodded eagerly. We promise, Hagrid. We won't tell a soul. Hagrid leaned in closer and began to speak in a low voice. All right then, but remember, this stays between us. The mechanism was designed by some of the most brilliant minds at Hogwarts. Each of them contributed a different part to ensure it was well protected. As Hagrid continued to explain, Harry and Ron listened intently, their minds racing with the possibilities. They knew they were getting closer to uncovering the truth, but they also knew that they had to be careful. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. As they left Hagrid's hut, Harry turned to Ron. "We need to be smart about this. We can't let anyone know what we're up to." Ron nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and we need to make sure Abe stays happy. If Aaron finds out what we're doing, we're in big trouble." With a renewed sense of determination, the two friends set off, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew the road would be difficult, but they were prepared to do whatever it took to protect the Sorcerer's Stone and keep their friends safe. The sense of fulfillment was undeniable, though there was still a bit of evolution needed. It would require some magic points later to quickly awaken the second talent skill. "Oh, that's right," Ron said, passing over a chicken leg from his dinner plate. He exchanged glances with Harry and then tentatively stretched out his right hand. However, when his fingers were still a palm's width away from Abe, the creature suddenly stopped eating, turned around, and bared its teeth at Ron. Startled, Ron immediately withdrew his hand. "Aaron, does it always have such a temper?" Ron asked, unable to hold back his frustration. "I just gave it a chicken leg, and it still won't let me touch it?" "Well, sorry about that," Aaron replied. "Generally, it's not allowed for boys to touch it without my permission. Besides my family, only Draco and Hermione have held it at school." Harry and Ron exchanged looks, realizing that the difficulty of winning over the cat had just increased significantly. Chapter 47. The Tactical Upgrade of the Two Cat Dealers. In the Gryffindor common room, Harry and Ron sat at a table, frowning. "What should we do?" Ron asked dejectedly. "Originally, I planned to win over Abe first. If I got his favor and then asked Aaron for permission, it would be much easier. But after a few days and nearly 20 chicken legs, Abe still doesn't seem to like us. This makes me feel even guiltier." Harry nodded in agreement. "Yeah, Aaron's starting to notice. We've been feeding Abe so much that he's getting chubby. When Aaron brought up the slightly fat white cat and asked us to stop feeding him, we were so embarrassed we could have hidden under a rock." Ron sighed, leaning back on the sofa. "Borrowing Abe isn't going to work. He's not easy to win over, and Aaron might not lend him to us." Harry looked around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, "Are you suggesting we steal him? That's not right. Aaron may be a Slytherin, but he's still our friend." "I know it's not kind," Ron admitted, "but do you have a better idea? Think about Snape. You don't want him to get the Philosopher's Stone, do you? We're not trying to hurt Abe. We just need him for an hour. Consider it a reward for all the chicken legs we've given him." Harry was torn. "But what if we get caught?" "We won't," Ron said confidently. "Don't forget, you have an invisibility cloak. Aaron can't keep Abe with him all the time. For example, they must be separated when Aaron goes to the bathroom. If we're careful, stealing a cat will be easy." Harry's mouth twitched at the thought. The plan sounded risky, and if they were caught, their friendship with Aaron would be in jeopardy. "No, we can't do that. It's too much. It's like being a cat trafficker." Ron smiled awkwardly. "I'm just giving you an idea. If you have a better one, I'm all ears." Harry hesitated, unable to think of a better plan. "What if Aaron notices Abe is missing?" Ron laughed. "Harry, Abe is a cat. It's normal for him to wander off when his owner isn't around. As long as he doesn't disappear for too long, it will be fine. After we show him to Hagrid, we'll release him, and he'll find his way back to Aaron. Cats can't talk, so there won't be any evidence." "Wait," Harry suddenly sat up. "I have an idea." "What is it?" Ron asked, curious. "Didn't you say Abe is a cat? What do cats do?" "They catch mice. If we let Scabbers appear in front of Aaron while he's going to the bathroom and lead him to Hagrid's cabin, wouldn't that work?" "No," Ron slammed the table angrily. "I absolutely disagree. That's a terrible idea. Cats catch mice, but they also eat them. What if Scabbers doesn't escape? He's been with me for a long time, and I can't risk his life." "Sorry," Harry said, lowering his head in shame. "So, we have to steal Abe?" "Yes, but we need a solid plan," Ron said, folding his arms with a serious expression. "Abe is alive. If we grab him suddenly, he'll resist and make noise." "Right," Harry agreed. "Maybe Hagrid will have a good idea." On the day they visited the gamekeeper's cottage, Harry and Ron explained their intentions to Hagrid. The simple and honest giant wore a troubled expression on his face. "Isn't your idea a little unreliable? Let's forget it," he said. "Then tell us who was involved in the mechanism design of the Sorcerer's Stone." Harry immediately countered. "This, of course not," Hagrid replied, his bushy beard huddling together. He was clearly struggling. He didn't want Harry and the others to get involved, hoping to delay them as long as possible. However, his curiosity about novel species was piqued. His intuition told him that Aaron's pets were definitely not simple and might even rival some magical creatures. "That's enough," Harry said helplessly. "But why are you looking for me? I can't help you." "No, Hagrid, you're the only one in all of Hogwarts who can help. No one knows animals better than you. You must have something that can put Abe to sleep." "Hush!" Hagrid looked around guiltily. "Who told you?" Harry and Ron exchanged smiles. "It seems that you really do," Harry said. Hagrid gave them a blank look and rummaged through a box in the corner. After about half a minute, he took out a small purple bottle. "A special sleeping pill. This thing is only useful for pets, not for people. But if it is a magical animal, the effect may not be so great. The more powerful the magical animal, the lower the effectiveness. For example, for magical animals like dragons and phoenixes, as long as they are not cubs, the sleeping potion is the same as plain water." "Enough is enough. What we want to bring down is a cat, not a dragon," Ron said with a smile, unaware that what they were going to bring down was far more formidable. "Okay, I can give you this, but you have to pay attention to the amount," Hagrid reminded them. "For Abe's build, 1 drop is enough to make him sleep for 2 hours. Moreover, you have to return this bottle of medicine to me after you use it." "Got it!" Harry took the medicine bottle and pulled Ron out of Hagrid's cabin. The two returned to the common room non-stop and began to discuss their plan. Looking at the purple vial on the table, they became more and more excited as they talked. Although they knew it wasn't kind to do this, they were 11-year-old children, and this kind of interesting and exciting thing had an inexplicable attraction to them. "What are you two doing? Why are you so happy?" Hermione walked over, holding a stack of review materials. Ron swiftly put away the sleeping pills on the table. "It's nothing. We're just discussing the Quidditch match." "Really?" Hermione asked suspiciously. "Of course it's true. Otherwise, what do you think we'd be happy about?" said Harry. "Unless Malfoy fell out of the toilet or Snape got fired." Hermione rolled her eyes. "I won't talk about Snape, but Draco hasn't offended you recently, has he?" "But he offended us when he started school," Ron said angrily. "That domineering attitude is exactly the same as his father, Lucius Malfoy." Harry nodded approvingly. He didn't like Malfoy's condescending attitude either. "It's up to you," Hermione said, patting the information in her hand on the table. "This is for you. As long as you memorize these for the final exams, you'll be fine." "Hermione," Ron's eyes twitched. "Are you sure this is for the final exam? Our textbooks shouldn't be stacked so high together." "What's your attitude? These are my study notes. Many people asked me for them, but I didn't give them." "No, but that's too much." Harry smiled wryly. Neither he nor Ron had much academic talent, and they would be satisfied as long as they could pass the exam. Hermione knew it was unrealistic to expect them to read everything. You don't need to memorize them all, but at least read them a few times, so you know what to write in the exam. Harry and Ron looked at each other, speechless. No matter how upset they were, they knew they had to bow their heads when facing Hermione's academic prowess. "By the way, did Hagrid let go?" "No." Harry shook his head. "He still has the same conditions." "What about Abe?" At this moment, the two of them exchanged a knowing look and shook their heads simultaneously, a hint of bitterness on their faces. Although their acting skills were lacking, their expressions were filled with genuine confusion. "Oh," Harry sighed dejectedly. Ron chimed in. "That cat didn't give us a chance." Chapter 48. Ben Long is also educated. Hermione frowned, feeling that the two people in front of her were trying to deceive her, but she had no evidence. "Let me give you a small suggestion. Don't entertain any thoughts you shouldn't have. If you really can't help it, maybe you can talk to Aaron openly and honestly. Then it's better to just give up." Harry shook his head. You know the probability of Aaron agreeing is no more than 1 in 10,000. And it will definitely alert him, making it even more difficult for us to, borrow it, Ron added. In short, you can leave this matter to us. Harry and I will find a way to deal with it. Okay, Hermione patted the stack of review materials, but be careful not to forget your studies. Harry and Ron looked at the pile of review materials, nodded resignedly, and watched Hermione leave. After she left, Ron took out a purple vial. Get the props ready, take a rest for a day, and look for an opportunity to act tomorrow. The next day, after class, the two followed Aaron from a distance. They watched the neatly dressed, lively white cat following him, feeling helpless. They trailed him from the classroom to the playground, to the auditorium, and finally to the library. However, once inside the library, they were at a loss because Aaron took out an approval slip and, with Mrs. Pince's permission, entered the restricted section openly. Hey, this is troublesome, Ron said regretfully. He probably won't come out for hours. Don't sigh. Opportunities are reserved for those who are prepared. We've followed him this far. A few more hours won't hurt, Harry encouraged. That's true. The two looked at each other, then sat at an empty table, took out Hermione's notes, and began the tormenting review. They thought they could keep an eye on Aaron, but after more than 10 minutes of flipping through the notes, they both yawned. I really suspect Hermione cast a sleeping curse on these, Ron said with a wry smile. It wasn't that he didn't want to work hard. There were just too many words making him drowsy. Hold on, Harry said, half asleep. We can't lose to Malfoy no matter what. Ron, are you serious about telling the truth with your eyes closed? Almost 2 hours later, Aaron emerged from the restricted section with a book in his arms. Ron! Ron! Harry hurriedly patted Ron's head to wake him up. What's wrong? Ron opened his eyes groggily. He's out. What? Ron instantly regained his energy. He and Harry quickly put away the materials on the table and followed Aaron quietly. But as soon as they left the library, they were a little embarrassed because Aaron was standing at the door, looking at them with a smile. I wonder if you two can tell me why you've been following me all day? Aaron asked. Eh? Ron was slightly taken aback. Who followed you? Do you have any evidence? It's true that I don't have any, but I don't believe your schedules just happen to match mine exactly. It's just a coincidence, Harry said, his eyes avoiding Aaron's gaze, but his tone firm. We just happened to go to the playground to watch Quidditch, then had dinner, and finally read a book in the library. I believe many students do the same. Really? Aaron didn't believe their nonsense. It was true that many students had such plans, but these two had followed him too closely for it to be a coincidence. However, he couldn't figure out their purpose for following him. Of course it is, Ron said confidently. Okay, I can pretend to believe you. I wonder where you two plan to go next. If you let me know, I promise to avoid you so we don't feel uncomfortable. The two knew that if they didn't explain, they might not be able to get away. Now that they had already alerted Aaron, they could only choose to hide the truth. Aaron, there is something we really want to ask you about, Harry began. Harry hesitated before speaking. I need your help. Aaron raised an eyebrow. Oh, then just tell me. It's up to me to decide if I can help. There's no need, Ed, for all this tracking nonsense. By the way, your tracking methods are very poor. Harry chuckled awkwardly and pulled out the notes Hermione had given him. It's like this. To prepare for the final exam, Hermione has arranged some intense training for us. She wants us to memorize all these knowledge points. Here are the notes. You can take a look. Aaron took the notebook dubiously and flipped through it briefly. There's nothing wrong with it. The records are very detailed and there are almost no flaws. To be honest, you're really lucky to have a friend like Hermione. So, what do you want me to do? We want you to tell Hermione not to push us too hard, Harry said, nudging Ron. Ron immediately chimed in. We both tried studying just now, but after more than 10 minutes, we almost fell asleep. You followed me all day just because of this? Aaron looked at the two, feeling speechless. He wondered if their brains had been squeezed by a door. Seeing that he was successfully fooled, Harry was delighted. You know Hermione's temper. If we make this request, she'll probably be unhappy, and since she's doing it for our own good, it's even more difficult for us to ask. But you're different. You have the best relationship with her at Hogwarts. She'll definitely listen to you. Aaron shook his head. Sorry, I can't help you with this. This kind of thing shouldn't be brought up by me. Otherwise, the scene will be even more embarrassing. With Hermione's intelligence, she'll easily guess that you two specifically asked me to intercede. If you really feel it's too much, go and explain it to her yourselves. Sometimes it's better to be honest. After speaking, Aaron turned and left. Both Harry and Ron sighed in relief, but couldn't help feeling a bit more depressed. Oh, this is difficult now, Harry said with a wry smile. Although we've gotten past it, we can't follow up, or he'll definitely find some problems. Yes, we can't go to the Slytherin lounge to block him. I don't know the Slytherin password either. Just think of another way. In the bathroom, under the invisibility cloak, Harry and Ron squatted anxiously by the door. This was the best plan they could come up with after thinking all night. It was the safest method, but it took a lot of time. From the end of class until now, at least dozens of people had gone to the toilet, but their target had not appeared. Harry, why don't we go back? If I stay any longer, I'll feel like a pervert. Wait a little longer. We've been waiting for so long. Aaron is definitely coming. But we've been waiting for 3 hours. The longer it takes, the more likely it is. Or less likely, Ron muttered, but he continued to wait with Harry. Perhaps their patience paid off, as Aaron appeared a few minutes later. Seeing the white cat following him, both of them were very excited, wishing to catch it immediately. After a while, Aaron closed the door and left Abe, the cat, on the sink, guarding outside like a sentinel. Are things ready? Harry asked. Ready, Ron replied, immediately taking out a lunchbox containing 2 chicken legs. Okay, success or failure depends on this. The two walked over carefully, opened the box, and gently placed it on the ground. Under the invisibility cloak, they fanned their robes, trying to waft the aroma of the chicken legs. Abbe, who was squatting on the sink and looking in the mirror, smelled the aroma and immediately pricked up his ears, raising his head slightly. It looked around for a moment, then walked to the door under the expectant eyes of the two and found the neatly arranged lunchbox. Ab's eyes widened in an instant, becoming particularly alert. Ab's eyes sparkled with excitement as he spotted his favorite food. Eat, eat, eat! He and his companion thought eagerly. They had been preparing for this moment for several days. However, Ab's next actions left them astonished, bewildered, and speechless. Ab approached the lunchbox and sniffed it carefully. Then, he turned his head and looked around, focusing intently on the position of the invisibility cloak. After confirming that no one was there, a trace of doubt appeared in his intelligent eyes. A few seconds later, the white cat resisted the urge to eat, wiped the drool from the corner of his mouth, and stretched out 2 paws to cover the lunchbox. With 3 hesitant steps, he walked into the bathroom, turning back 3 times along the way. You can't eat food that falls on the ground, let alone food that looks like it belongs to someone else, Abe remembered his master's instructions. Ben Long had also been taught this lesson. Chapter 49. What? Ron's eyes widened in disbelief. How could this be? Hagrid's suspicion of the cat isn't entirely unfounded, but there should be a limit to self-discipline, Harry said with emotion. Let's not dwell on it. Just pack your things and leave quickly. Leave? Then all our waiting was for nothing? Ron was reluctant. They had worked hard for several days, and their plan seemed flawless. The result was unacceptable. If we don't leave now, we can't. Aaron will come out soon. What do you think he'll think when he sees these 2 drumsticks? Harry reasoned. This. Ron began to protest, but the sound of running water from the bathroom interrupted him. Realizing they couldn't wait any longer, Harry quickly put away the lunchbox and covered Ron's mouth. As Aaron walked past the door, the 2 boys removed their invisibility cloaks and exchanged helpless glances. This cat is absolutely fine, Ron said indignantly. Oh, Harry sighed. If Hagrid hadn't insisted, I would have given up. No, Harry, I'm not willing to suffer such a big loss over a cat. Are you? Of course not. Then, let's go back and discuss the plan again. I don't believe the 2 of us can't outsmart a cat. Harry thought for a moment, then nodded emphatically. Back in the Gryffindor common room, the 2 returned to their frowning looks. Tempting it with food is probably out of the question, Ron said. Abe is very cautious and won't eat food from strangers, let alone food placed in a corner. No, that's not it, Harry disagreed. It's not about the food. You saw how its saliva could flow from the door to the sink, but it restrained its desire for food. Then what do you mean? It's a human, Harry said confidently. Only when Aaron is around does Abe dare to eat with confidence. That's a problem, Ron said with a wry smile. If Aaron is there, even if Abe falls asleep, we might not be able to take him away. We can't tie Aaron and the cat together. That would be a complete change of plan, and we don't have the courage or the ability. Aaron's academic performance is recognized by all the professors, and he seems to have fought trolls with Snape. Even if we combined our efforts, we might not be able to beat him. It's not impossible, Harry said hesitantly. Aaron mentioned that there are 2 people in school who can lower Abe's guard. One is Draco, and the other is Hermione? Ron was surprised, his face becoming strange. You don't mean her? Yes. Impossible, Harry. Don't you remember she objected to our plan to attack Abe? She won't help us, let alone collude with us. It's difficult, but it's the only reliable method right now. To complete Hagrid's mission, we have 4 options. One is Aaron, but he won't hand over his pet to Hagrid for inspection, so the success rate is 0. The second is Abe himself, but we've tried for days and haven't succeeded. The third is Malfoy, who can hold Abe and feed him like Aaron. That's out of the question, Ron said disdainfully. His success rate is definitely negative. So, that leaves Hermione. She's Aaron's good friend and can hold Abe without any trouble. Plus, she knows a lot about the Philosopher's Stone, Momo, Snape, and so on. If we appeal to her emotions and reason with her. Don't forget to swallow your pride, Ron added helplessly. Yes, swallow our pride. Harry's mouth twitched, a bit of bitterness on his face. Both of them knew that if they were willing to ask Hermione for help, she wouldn't turn a blind eye. But this was the most difficult step for them, and it hurt their self-esteem. I have to go to save face. This is our last chance. Only by knowing who was involved in designing those mechanisms can we grasp the progress of Snape's operations. Okay, if you lose face, you can lose face. Ron nodded helplessly, trying to comfort himself. As long as we don't let Snape get his way, we've made a great contribution to Hogwarts. Maybe at the end of the semester, you can add points and win the House Cup. The 2 made a decision, and Ime diligently took out the review materials given by Hermione, reading them with torment. Since they were asking for a favor, they had to show they were serious. If Hermione saw them working hard and not wasting her efforts, she would be more likely to listen to them. However, the ideal is often far from reality. The 2 wanted to show off their dedication, but they didn't expect Hermione to return to the common room until the curfew at night. By then, their eyelids were already drooping, but they still tried to look as if they were studying diligently. It was hard enough, but it looked a little funny. You're almost ready, Hermione said, the corner of her mouth twitching. Studying requires a balance of work and rest. You should go to bed now. Hearing Hermione's voice, the 2 snapped back to their senses, their confused eyes lighting up instantly. Hermione, you're finally back, Ron said, almost crying with relief. We haven't seen each other for so long. No, Harry put on his glasses. How does that saying go? 1 day feels like 3 autumns. I understand it now. You guys really amaze me, but I hope you both go back to sleep quickly. Your mental state is not suitable for lying on this table at all. Hermione, we have something to discuss with you, Harry said hesitantly. Is it important? It can be said to be important or not important. Then go back to sleep first. Hermione said as she packed up the review materials on the table. Tomorrow is Sunday, so you can talk about it then. Harry and Ron didn't argue and walked towards the boys' dormitory in a daze. After all, dealing with sleep deprivation is quite a test. The next day, Harry and Ron didn't waste any time and directly explained their cat-luring plan 3.0 to Hermione. After hearing it, Hermione looked incredulous. In other words, you failed twice, and now you want me to help you steal Abe? You could say that, Harry admitted, looking like a kid caught making a mistake. Heh, Hermione rolled her eyes. It's fine if I don't report you, but now you want me to do such a bad thing. I really don't understand what you 2 are thinking. Hermione, we know it's difficult for you, but we really have no other choice. It took us a long time to come up with such a reliable method. As long as you are willing to help, there's at least a 70% success rate. Be taller, Harry. At least an 80% success rate. Sorry, I refuse, Hermione said firmly. I can help with other things, but I really can't do this. If I do, I will have no face to see him in the future. It's enough not to be discovered, Ron said. Our plan is perfect. It will take at most an hour, just to satisfy Hagrid's curiosity. No, Hermione waved her hand immediately. His curiosity shouldn't be satisfied in this way, and I don't want to be your accomplice. Yes, you are right, Ron said disdainfully. It's not because Abe belongs to Aaron. If it were someone else, you probably wouldn't reject it so thoroughly. Hermione opened her mouth, feeling conflicted. It's the same with other people. Harry, come on. Our 2 Gryffindors combined are no match for 1 Slytherin. Ron, Harry glared at him fiercely. What we are planning to do is really not a good thing. But our end goal is good. We've worked hard for a month to protect the Philosopher's Stone, but a cat is blocking us. Now we begged her. Nicole Flamel's information was discovered with Hermione's help, but is she acting like a true friend should? Ron, Harry interjected, unable to hold back. Hermione's decision isn't about friendship. You shouldn't be so aggressive right now. Okay, stop talking, Hermione said reluctantly, shaking her sleeves. I'll help you this time. Really? Harry was overjoyed, feeling that happiness had come too suddenly. Really, but you must ensure that everything is safe. If we get caught, we'll be in serious trouble. Don't worry about that. We can guarantee it, Ron said immediately, patting his chest. Even if something goes wrong, we'll take that responsibility and won't embarrass you. Chapter 50. Sleeping pills became ecstasy. After Hermione agreed to the plan, she felt a pang of regret. However, she was determined to follow through. The conditions to abduct Ab were simple: acquaintances, chicken legs, and sleeping pills. With all 3 conditions met, Hermione felt a bit apprehensive, but Harry and Ron were brimming with confidence, convinced that their plan would succeed. By dinner time, students from all 4 houses gathered in the Great Hall. As usual, Aaron set down his pet cat and began to enjoy his meal in an orderly manner. At the Gryffindor table, Ron and Harry exchanged glances and then gave Hermione a subtle nod. It was her turn. If she missed this opportunity, they would have to wait for another. Hermione hesitated for a moment, but then stood up and walked over to Aaron. Before she could speak, Aaron looked up and asked, Hermione, what can I do for you? The final exams are coming up, and I'm feeling a bit stressed. I was wondering if I could borrow Ab for a while, Hermione said, trying to sound casual. This little guy is very comforting and can help me relax. Ab immediately raised his proud dragon head, as if to say, I wouldn't be happy even if you praised me. However, the slight increase in the height of his hat betrayed his secret joy. Are you really that stressed? Draco, who was sitting opposite Aaron, couldn't help but interject. Are you kidding me? I'm under a lot of pressure. If my father finds out I lost to you, he'll be furious. Then you should work harder. Just make sure your grades aren't lower than mine, Hermione retorted, her tone sharp. She had no patience for Malfoy. Draco faltered. He knew there was a significant gap between his and Hermione's academic abilities, but he couldn't afford to lose face. I'll prove it to you. Just wait and see. Hermione turned back to Aaron. So, can I borrow Ab for the night? Aaron hesitated. If it were a cat, he would have no problem lending it, but Ab was a dragon. Generally, girls were charmed by Ab, but if they noticed the wings under his clothes, it could cause a lot of trouble. If it's too much trouble, forget it. I don't want to make things difficult for you, Hermione said, feigning disappointment. She secretly hoped Aaron would refuse, which would mean Harry and Ron's plan would fail, and she wouldn't have to kidnap Ab against her will. Actually, it's not impossible, Aaron said after a moment. But you have to promise to take good care of him and make sure no one else touches him or takes off his clothes. Does he sleep with his clothes on? Hermione asked, puzzled. A look of grievance appeared on Ab's face. Although his clothes were specially made by djinns to be stretchable and breathable, suitable even as pajamas, he could only take them off when changing clothes, which made him sigh. That's right, Aaron confirmed, rubbing Ab's head. He's very sensitive to the cold. All right, I promised to take good care of him, Hermione said firmly, though she couldn't guarantee the latter part. She just hoped Harry's plan would go smoothly without any complications. Good, I'll give him to you after dinner, Aaron said. Hermione nodded and returned to the Gryffindor table, making sure Aaron didn't see the conflicted expression on her face. You don't really intend to lend her Ab, do you? Draco asked suspiciously. Aaron usually treated Ab like a treasure, not letting anyone else touch him, and now he was just lending him out? I mean what I say, Aaron shrugged. Besides, it's not a big deal. If you want to borrow him, I could lend him to you too. Really? Draco's face lit up with excitement, but just as he was about to say something, Ab, who had been waiting patiently, suddenly bared his teeth, making Draco feel extremely embarrassed. That's fine. I'm not a girl. I don't need to borrow him, Draco muttered, trying to save face. Draco scowled. I have my own way of venting when I'm stressed. He turned to look at Crabbe and Goyle, who were feasting on either side. Oh, F him. You two, come outside with me after dinner. No problem, boss, Crabbe mumbled through a mouthful of food. Goyle simply nodded in agreement. A walk after eating seemed reasonable to them. Draco sighed, feeling exasperated with his two followers. Though loyal, their abilities were mediocre at best. On the other side of the room, Hermione returned to her seat, meeting the questioning eyes of Harry and Ron. Don't worry, Aaron has already promised me, but you two absolutely have to make sure nothing goes wrong, she emphasized. That's absolutely fine, Harry assured her. We have an invisibility cloak. No one will find out. Seeing their confidence, Hermione said nothing more. She just hoped time would pass quickly and this matter would be resolved soon. Every extra second felt like torment. After dinner, the people in the auditorium began to leave. Only a dozen or so remained from the four houses, most of them food enthusiasts. Let's go, Draco said, leading his followers out. Aaron nodded and then looked at Abe solemnly. This is your first time staying at someone else's place. Remember to be safe, understand? Abe nodded, rubbing Aaron's palm with reluctance. Haha, okay. I trust Hermione. Nothing will happen tonight. Besides, you will grow up sooner or later. We can't stay together all the time. It's time to get used to it in advance. Aaron comforted Abe before leading it to the Gryffindor table. At the long table, only 5 people remained, 2 seniors, Hermione, Harry, and Ron. Hermione. Aaron's sudden call made Hermione tremble. She turned around, looking resentful. Sorry, I was thinking about something and didn't notice you. It seems you're under a lot of pressure, Aaron teased, placing Abe in her arms. I'll leave it to you. Just give it back to me at breakfast tomorrow. Hermione's voice was barely audible, and she didn't dare to meet his gaze. Is she okay? Aaron asked, frowning slightly. She should be fine, Harry said. Hermione is just a little tired. She needs to sleep. Aaron didn't doubt him and turned to leave. Hermione only relaxed once he was out of the auditorium. She glared at Harry and Ron. You'd better not come to me for this kind of thing again, or I will definitely break up with you two. Understood, there won't be a next time, Ron said, pulling out a chicken leg he had saved. I prepared something good for it. Abe's eyes lit up at the sight of the chicken leg, but turned to look at Hermione, making her feel somewhat guilty. Hey, eat as much as you want. Abe jumped onto the dining table and began to chew, oblivious to the scheming smiles on Harry and Ron's faces. Seeing Abe's performance, Harry and Ron's hearts sank steadily. Only they knew how difficult the past few days had been. Abe's eating speed was impressive, and within minutes the chicken leg was gone, leaving only a bone on the plate. Abe patted its stomach in satisfaction. Just as it was about to jump back into Hermione's arms, it felt dizzy, its vision filled with countless double images. It staggered, stretched out its front paws, and then collapsed on the table. Hermione immediately picked it up, patting its head with concern. Abe will be fine. No, I only added 3 drops. It should wake up after sleeping for 6 hours, Ron said. Wait, Harry frowned. How much did you say you added? 3 drops of sleeping potion, Ron replied. Heh, Harry chuckled, patting his forehead. I was worried you might forget, so I added 3 more drops. Ron stared at him, speechless. Good grief, Harry. You've turned the sleeping potion into a knockout drug. Harry cleared his throat. Ahem. Actually, it's not a big deal. 1 drop can make an animal sleep for 2 hours, 6 drops should be enough to keep it asleep until the next morning. This way, we'll have more time. Worst case, if it wakes up tomorrow morning, Hermione, Aaron won't notice. That's our only option, Hermione murmured softly. She didn't want to be part of this plan, but since she was already involved, she had no choice but to see it through. Chapter 51. Draco. Today was not in vain. After wrapping Abby in an invisibility cloak, Harry and the others walked out of the auditorium. They looked around carefully, making sure that no one was paying attention, and then walked towards Hagrid's hut without stopping. As soon as they stepped outside the castle, they were spotted by Draco and his 2 followers, who were taking a walk. "Where are you going?" Draco stood in the middle of the road and asked meaningfully. "The common room is not this way." "Don't worry about it," Ron said, pushing Draco aside. He quickly walked through the corridor with a slightly guilty Harry and Hermione in tow. "That's rude," said Crabbe indignantly. Draco's face darkened. Normally, he would have retaliated against Weasley, but he had matured over time. Weasley might lack manners, but Malfoy couldn't afford to. "What are they doing outside the castle at night?" Goyle asked suspiciously. "It's almost curfew time. Sep, what could they be up to?" Draco sneered. "The forest guard of the giant family outside the castle has something to do with them. That's the only place they could be heading." As soon as he finished speaking, Draco's expression turned contemplative. "It's very suspicious. What are they doing there at night?" "Maybe they're reminiscing about old times," Crabbe suggested, not thinking too much about it. After all, Harry, Ron, and Hermione did have a good relationship with Hagrid. "No," Draco began to pace slowly. "If they were reminiscing, they wouldn't do it so close to curfew. If they don't get back to the dormitory in time, they'll lose points. Moreover, they seemed a bit sneaky, as if they had done something shameful. And I didn't see Ab. Aaron must have given his cat to Hermione Granger. There's definitely something going on." Crabbe asked hesitantly, "Then, should we follow them and see?" "Don't be ridiculous. It's almost curfew," Goyle said weakly. "So we should go back to sleep. What if we get caught?" "Then let's hurry back before curfew," Draco said meaningfully. "We can move faster." Crabbe and Goyle exchanged glances and nodded reluctantly. Knowing their destination, the 3 of them walked slowly towards Hagrid's hut. On the other side, Harry and the others ran to Hagrid's cabin, out of breath. They knocked on the wooden door urgently. A few seconds later, Hagrid opened the door. When he saw the 3 of them, he had a helpless expression on his face. "Hi, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to play with you today." Just as Hagrid was about to close the door, Harry took out Abby, who had been wrapped in the invisibility cloak. "You might want this." Hagrid's eyes lit up at the sight of the sleeping white cat. "You really did it?" "I think you have to invite us in," Ron said playfully. "Of course, come in quickly." The 3 of them entered the hut and found the temperature stiflingly hot. "Sep, it's spring now. Why is your fire still burning so hot?" Hermione asked, puzzled. "That's not important," Hagrid said enthusiastically, making tea for the 3 of them. His large hand reached for the sleeping Ab. "Wait," Harry stopped Hagrid. "We brought the cat. Shouldn't you also tell us who else participated in the mechanism designed to protect the Philosopher's Stone?" "I can tell you, but you must promise not to tell anyone, and definitely not say that I told you," Hagrid said reluctantly. "Dumbledore borrowed Abby from me and cast magic on it. Besides him, there are Professor Snape, Professor McGonagall, Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick. Oh, and Professor Quirrell. That's all. Now, can I see Ab?" Hermione hesitated but placed the cat on the table. "Let me be clear first," she began. "You can look at it, you can even touch it, but you must not harm it." "Don't worry, I would never harm an animal," Hagrid said solemnly. "I just want to find out what kind of creature Eb is." What Hagrid didn't know was that Draco and his 2 followers had just arrived at the cabin. Hearing Hagrid's words, the 3 of them exchanged shocked glances. "Today has not been in vain," Draco sneered. "I thought Granger was Aaron's good friend. Unexpectedly, it's really knowing people by their faces but not their hearts." "This is a shameful betrayal," Crabbe said angrily, his round face contorting with rage. "Normal. Spending so much time with Weasley and the so-called savior Harry Potter, it's no wonder she turned bad," Draco said, waving his hand dismissively. "The most urgent task now is to inform Aaron and catch them in the act. Otherwise, they'll never admit it. I'll stand guard here and rush in to protect Abe if necessary. You two hurry back and call him. But the curfew is coming soon, Goyle hesitated. It will definitely be too late by then. Stupid, Draco snapped. Filch is the only one patrolling Hogwarts at night. As long as he doesn't catch us, we'll be fine. Besides, I'm a Malfoy. Even if I'm caught, he won't do anything to me. At worst, points will be deducted. Hurry up, if you're late, it might be too late. Draco's firm attitude left Crabbe and Goyle with no room for objections. They, too, were disdainful of Harry and his friend's behavior. As they quietly left Hagrid's cabin, they broke into a speed they usually couldn't muster, rushing towards the dormitory. Draco was a bit surprised by their speed, the corners of his mouth twitching as he wondered if his followers had been playing him all along. This was not the speed typical of someone as heavyset as them. At that moment, a strange sound came from the cabin, catching Draco's attention. Ding! 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 The sound of a pot lid clattering suddenly filled the air, and Hagrid stood up from his seat immediately. The three inside also turned to look behind Hagrid. A pot on the strong fire was shaking constantly. Wearing a pair of thick gloves, Hagrid fished out a burnt, somewhat blackened egg from the pot. The egg was large and extremely hot. Even with gloves on, Hagrid felt the heat and quickly placed it on the table. No one noticed that Abe, who had been sleeping soundly, suddenly twitched his nose as if smelling something delicious. Slowly, he opened his sleepy eyes. Hagrid, what is this? Harry asked curiously. This is an article. It is an article. I know what it is, Ron interjected, his face turning strange. But Hagrid, how did you get it? Won it. Won it from a stranger, Hagrid said, rolling his eyes slightly. For some reason, he seemed eager to lose to me. As soon as the words left his mouth, a black crack appeared on the surface of the eggshell. The whole egg began to shake, and white steam spewed out from the crack. The four people inside, and Draco outside the window, held their breath, watching the scene nervously. A few seconds later, the eggshell shattered, and fragments flew around. Fortunately, none of the hot pieces hit the four people around the egg. A jet-black claw protruded from the lower half of the eggshell, followed by a prickly wing. With a few light flaps of its wings, most of the egg fragments on the table were swept away, revealing a jet-black young dragon. The dragon was not very beautiful. Its head was only the size of a fist. Having just hatched, its body was still wet. It let out a soft cry and looked around blankly. A long layer of mucus hung from the corner of its mouth, but it showed strong vitality, moving energetically. Its limbs rested on the table. Is this a dragon? Hermione asked, her eyes wide with astonishment. She knew dragons existed in the magical world and had read about them in books, but seeing a real dragon up close left her feeling both lucky and bewildered. It's not just any dragon, it's a Norwegian ridgeback, Ron said confidently. My brother studies dragons in Romania. It's beautiful, Hagrid beamed, gently stroking the dragon's head with his fingers. Look at this little guy. He thinks of me as his mother. Right, Norbert? As if on cue, Norbert sneezed, sending a burst of dragon flame from his nose that singed a large portion of Hagrid's thick beard. If magical creatures find out, they could be in serious trouble. The consequences of abducting a magical creature, especially one potentially more valuable than dragons and phoenixes, were far more severe than a simple prank. Hagrid, noticing their growing anxiety, tried to calm them. Now, don't panic. We need to think this through. First, we need to confirm what Abe really is. If he's a magical creature, we need to understand his needs and how to care for him properly. Hermione, always the voice of reason, nodded. Hagrid's right. We need to do some research. Maybe we can find something in the library about magical creatures that resemble cats. Ron, still looking a bit pale, added, and we need to make sure Abe doesn't get into any more trouble. We can't afford to have him running around causing chaos. Harry, trying to stay positive, said, All right, let's split up. Hermione and I will head to the library to see what we can find. Ron, you stay here with Hagrid and keep an eye on Abe. Make sure he doesn't eat anything else he shouldn't. With a plan in place, the trio felt a bit more at ease. They knew they had to act quickly and carefully to avoid any further complications. As they left Hagrid's cabin, the weight of their new responsibility settled on their shoulders. They had accidentally abducted a fantastic beast, and now they had to figure out how to handle the situation without getting caught. Back in the cabin, Hagrid watched Abe with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "You really are something special, aren't you?" he murmured to the little creature, who was now contentedly licking its paws. "We'll figure this out, don't you worry." As Harry and Hermione made their way to the library, they couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. They needed answers, and they needed them fast. The fate of their magical education, and possibly their freedom, depended on it. "For you, but you have to promise me one thing. If you ever need help with Abe, you'll come to me first." Hermione's tense shoulders relaxed slightly. "All right, Hagrid, I promise." Outside the hut, Draco Malfoy was practically vibrating with excitement. He had enough dirt on the Gryffindors to cause a major scandal. He just needed Crabbe and Goyle to hurry up and get Filch. The thought of seeing Granger, Potter, and Weasley expelled was almost too good to be true. And the cherry on top was the revelation about Abe. A magical creature of such rarity and intelligence was a prize beyond his wildest dreams. Inside, the atmosphere was still tense. Harry, Ron, and Hermione exchanged worried glances. They knew that keeping Abe's true nature a secret was crucial, not just for their sake, but for Aaron's as well. "All right, let's think this through," Harry said, trying to steer the conversation back to practical matters. "We need to make sure Abe stays safe and hidden. Hagrid, can you help us with that?" Hagrid nodded vigorously. "Of course, Harry. I'll do everything I can to help, but we need to be careful. If the Ministry finds out about Abe, they'll want to take him away for study." Ron shuddered at the thought. "We can't let that happen. Abe's our friend, and we have to protect him." Hermione looked at Abe, who was now curiously sniffing around the hut. "We need to find out more about what he is. Maybe there's something in the library that can help us." Harry nodded. "Good idea. We'll start researching tomorrow. For now, let's get Abe back to the dormitory before anyone else sees him." As they carefully gathered their things and prepared to leave, Hagrid gave them a reassuring smile. "Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on Norbert and make sure he doesn't cause any more trouble. You three just focus on keeping Abe safe." With a final nod, the trio slipped out of the hut and made their way back to the castle, Abe trotting along beside them. They knew the road ahead would be challenging, but they were determined to protect their magical friend at all costs. Meanwhile, Draco watched them go, a sinister grin spreading across his face. He had all the ammunition he needed, and he couldn't wait to see the fallout. Little did he know, the Gryffindors were more resourceful than he gave them credit for, and the battle for Abe's safety was just beginning. "Thank you," Hermione breathed a sigh of relief, then looked at Hagrid with some shame. "Sorry, I made you happy for nothing." Hagrid smiled warmly. "There's nothing to be sorry about. I've been very lucky this evening. Norbert was born, and it was confirmed that Abe is a magical animal. If I want to get in touch with it closely in the future, I'll find a way to talk to Aaron. Then you have to help me talk to him." "I will, but Abe isn't that important to Aaron. I can't make any guarantees," Hermione replied. "There will always be a chance. Aaron will study at Hogwarts for 7 years, Hagrid said, looking at Abe, who was walking towards the next eggshell with some reluctance. "Let's look at my Norbert first." Chapter 53. Meeting of Two Young Dragons. Hagrid teased the newborn Norbert, but his eyes frequently darted to Abe, who was nibbling on the eggshell. His gaze was full of curiosity and wonder. He hoped Abe would come over so he could take a closer look, maybe even touch him. However, with Hermione watching him intently, this idea was just wishful thinking. Harry and Ron admired Norbert with great interest. Unlike Hagrid, they had spent the past few days trying to steal moments with Abe, Hagrid's cat. They had already experienced the luxury of Hagrid's close observation and stroking. In contrast, Norbert, the Norwegian Ridgeback, was more attractive to them. Abe might be an unknown magical creature, but it was unlikely to surpass the dragon, the apex of magical animals. Meanwhile, Crabbe and Goyle finally made it to the Slytherin common room. "Pure blood," they said, entering the password to open the door. The two of them entered the dormitory without any delay. "Aaron, something big happened, a very big thing," Crabbe said, out of breath. "What's the matter?" Aaron asked calmly. "Where's Draco? It's curfew, and he didn't come back with you." "He asked us to notify you," Goyle added anxiously, panting. There's no time. You need to come with us. Calm down. What happened? Goyle, tell me. Harry Potter, Ron, and Hermione, they. What happened? They took Abe to Hagrid's. What? Aaron's heart thumped, and he immediately stood up from the bed. Are you sure you saw it right? Absolutely. One of us could be wrong, but all three of us can't be, Crabbe said. Good grief. I knew something was off when Hermione asked to borrow Abe. It was premeditated. Hagrid, you really misunderstood the guy with thick eyebrows and big eyes for playing such a bad move. Exactly. If we hadn't seen it with our own eyes, we wouldn't believe it, Crabbe said. Aaron, go and see it. I'm going right now. You two stay in the dormitory obediently. Don't follow. But, no buts. Listen to me. I'll explain it to Draco. Aaron's tone was firm. He felt that Abe's identity might not remain concealed. Given the situation, he needed to minimize the impact as much as possible. The fewer people who knew about it, the better. Crabbe and Goyle looked at each other and nodded. They were unwilling to turn back if they could stay in the dormitory and sleep. A quick night run was manageable for the two of them, but doing it again would be too much. Aaron quickly changed his clothes, just in case he took out a spare pet suit from the closet. After leaving the Slytherin common room, he ran in the direction of the Forbidden Forest. I hope there's still time. My stupid dragon, you have to protect yourself and never take off your clothes, he thought. What he didn't know was that after he ran out, Mrs. Norris emerged from the shadows. Watching the figure running wildly under the moonlight, a gleam of light flashed in the cat's pupils. 10 minutes passed, and Abe finished eating the eggshells scattered in the hut. Although he was only about 70% full, he patted his stomach with satisfaction. He looked around, glanced at Hagrid, Harry, and Ron, and then settled on the young lady his master had asked him to accompany. He immediately walked over with strides and then jumped lightly, landing in front of Hermione. Come here. Hermione beckoned to Abe and took him into her arms under Hagrid's longing eyes. Hermione, Hagrid smiled sheepishly. Abe looks pretty good. Do you think I could... You understand. I'm afraid it won't work. Abe doesn't let strangers touch him when he's awake. She's telling the truth, Hagrid, laughed Harry. We've been feeding him for days, but he'll bare his teeth in protest if you try to touch him. It's best not to try. You might get bitten. Ha ha! I'm not afraid of that, Hagrid said, stretching out his finger to Norbert and blocking its mouth. The next moment, Norbert bit the giant's finger. Hagrid remained unfazed. As an adult giant with rough skin and thick flesh, the bite of a baby drag on less than an hour old was nothing more than a scratch to him. See, it's impossible for Abe's teeth to be sharper than a dragon's, he boasted. However, within 3 seconds of showing off, Norbert coughed, and fist-sized flames spewed out of its mouth, directly hitting Hagrid's fingers. Hiss! Hagrid gasped, hurriedly plunging his fingers into a glass of water to cool them down. After a moment, he looked up to meet 3 pairs of amused eyes and said with a sheepish grin, I just set a bad example, but I also demonstrated that you should never put your body in front of a dragon's mouth unless you're absolutely sure it's safe. The 3 of them couldn't help but laugh. Hermione hugged Abe even tighter. Hagrid, you better restrain your thoughts. If you force it, I don't want to see Abe bite you. Don't worry. Besides, Abe can't spit fire, so the danger isn't that great. How about this? You let me try it, and if it doesn't work, I'll give up immediately. Okay, Hermione nodded hesitantly. She didn't want to agree, but she knew Hagrid wouldn't be satisfied unless he tried. Hagrid was overjoyed and nervously extended his huge palm towards Abe, both excited and apprehensive. But Abe didn't care. Just as Hagrid's palm was about to touch him, Abe jumped from Hermione's arms onto the table, perfectly evading him. Well, Hagrid spread his hands. The first contact failed. Hermione smiled speechlessly. Just as she was about to pick up Abe, she noticed the little guy staring intently at Norbert. Stop making trouble. It's a dragon. Don't get too close. Be careful of being burned by the dragon's breath. Ignoring Hermione's warning, Abe walked straight forward and stopped about 30 centimeters in front of Norbert. The 2 dragons looked at each other closely. Norbert shook his head, confused. He could feel a throbbing in his blood, sensing that the creature opposite him seemed to be a dragon too. Abe, on the other hand, looked at Norbert curiously. This was the first time he had seen another dragon. It was completely different from the illustrations in the books, a real, living dragon. But after a while, a touch of disdain appeared in his eyes. This dragon wasn't as good-looking as he was. "Harry, did I see that right?" Ron rubbed his eyes. "Why does it look like Abe doesn't like Norbert?" "I think I saw it too. It felt weird, similar to the way Draco looks at us." "Impossible," Hagrid said, displeased. "This is clearly a historic meeting of two magical animal cubs. How sacred, you must be mistaken. Don't worry about it so much. Just separate them quickly. Don't forget, Abe is right in front of Norbert's mouth. It's too dangerous." "It's okay, Hermione. Both Abe and Norbert are just cubs. They might just be curious about each other's identities. Nothing will go wrong." Hagrid reassured confidently. It was not uncommon for magical animals to fight, but it was very rare. Only adult magical animals would use fights to resolve issues over food, territory, or mates. Unless they were natural enemies and could sense it in their blood, cubs usually didn't have major conflicts. Seeing Hagrid's confidence, Hermione also breathed a sigh of relief. After all, Hagrid was the keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts, and often dealt with the creatures in the Forbidden Forest. In this respect, he was the authority. Abe was about to leave after glancing at Norbert with a little disdain, but just as he was about to turn away, he noticed a few eggshells on the table. His eyes lit up instantly. He walked behind Norbert unhurriedly, lowered his body, and picked up one of the eggshells. Click! The clear, crisp sound echoed like a signal for war, and the hearts of everyone present leapt into their throats. "Hagrid," Hermione whispered urgently. Harry looked at the two magical creatures on the table and couldn't help but swallow nervously. "Even though I haven't read much, I can tell this. This looks like a provocation." Hagrid nodded hesitantly. "Obviously, yes." "Will it be all right?" Ron asked, the corner of his mouth twitching with anxiety. "I don't know," Hagrid admitted. "It's my first time raising a dragon. The book doesn't mention what happens when baby dragons are provoked." Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes to Norbert, hoping that the Norwegian Ridgeback would have a forgiving nature and not be as sensitive as they feared. But contrary to their hopes, Norbert was still a dragon. Even though he was just born, he understood the concept of dragon dignity. Gnawing on his eggshell in front of him was akin to rubbing his face in the dirt, and no dragon could tolerate that. In the next moment, Norbert raised his head slightly, and a red hue began to appear on his neck, growing deeper and more intense. "No, separate them!" Hagrid yelled urgently. Chapter 54. Let them. Hagrid's warning came a bit too late. Almost simultaneously, a torrent of dragon flames, imbued with a destructive aura, surged towards Abe, causing everyone to gasp in horror. Their hearts raced with fear, knowing that if Aaron found out Abe was injured, there would be severe consequences. However, what happened next left everyone stunned. While gnawing on the eggshell, Abe sensed the terrifying heat approaching from behind. Instinctively, he ducked his head, and the dragon flame narrowly missed him. The flames flew over his head, singeing the edge of his hat. In a daze, touched the hat with his right paw and noticed the burn mark. Anger flared within him. This hat was a special gift from his owner's mother, one of the few items enchanted with a traceless stretching spell. It was his favorite, containing his entire net worth and almost all his snacks. The thought of it being burned infuriated him. With a crunch, Abe bit down on the eggshell, turned around angrily, and glared at Norbert, who was still emitting black smoke from his mouth. Abe let out a roar that didn't belong to a cat. Roar! A faint but palpable pressure spread across the table, causing Norbert to take a half-step back involuntarily. However, Norbert quickly regained his composure and stepped forward defiantly. So what if Abe was bigger? Norbert was a Norwegian Ridgeback, a carnivorous fire dragon, not some grass-eating creature. Abe's cute appearance had no deterrent effect on him. Norbert was determined to prove he could win this fight. Merlin's beard. "This is definitely not a cat," Ron exclaimed in surprise. "Don't just stand there. Separate them quickly, or something terrible will happen," Hagrid urged, grabbing his umbrella and aiming a spell at Abe. At the same time, Hermione cast a spell towards Norbert. Norbert staggered for a moment, but quickly regained his footing. The spell's impact was negligible. Dragon skin is highly resistant to stunning spells, even when the dragon is newly hatched. Hermione, being a first-year student, had cast a spell that was even less effective than Hagrid's attempt. On Abe's side, the situation was even more astonishing. When the red curse hit him, a layer of sacred white scales appeared under his clothes, nullifying the spell. "How is this possible?" Hagrid muttered in bewilderment. "It doesn't make sense." He admitted he had held back, not wanting to harm the magical creature cubs. But even so, Abe should have shown some reaction, not remained completely unscathed. This not only highlighted Abe's unusual nature, but also made Hagrid question his competence as a gamekeeper. Hermione and Hagrid exchanged glances, ready to cast more spells. But before they could raise their wands, both dragons roared, scaring them off. Abe bared his teeth at Hagrid, issuing a simple warning, then walked towards Norbert unhurriedly. Revenge was a priority. He needed to deal with the dragon cub that had damaged his clothes. As for Hagrid, he would remember this honest-looking giant for later. Despite his current physique, he might not be able to defeat Hagrid, but he wouldn't forget this slight. "Hagrid, what should we do?" Hermione gripped her wand tightly, swallowing nervously. "There's no stopping them now. Norbert's dragon breath must have really angered Abe. If we don't let them fight, they won't be able to let this go," Hagrid said helplessly. "And I think Abe holds a grudge against Norbert." "That's not okay," Hermione said, stepping forward to intervene, but a thick arm stopped her. "It's best not to intervene," Hagrid advised. "This is like a conflict between children, just a small fight. If we don't let them solve it themselves now, who knows what will happen when these two magical creatures grow up." "But Norbert is a dragon. Abe can't beat him," Hermione protested. "You can't say that," Hagrid replied with a smile. "Norbert just hatched, and Abe still has the advantage in terms of size. Don't worry, I'll step in if it gets out of hand." "But," Hermione hesitated, "I can't let Abe get hurt. I won't be able to explain it." Hagrid frowned. Protecting Abe might mean he would have to attack Norbert, a dragon he planned to raise like his own child. However, seeing Hermione's pleading eyes, he nodded. "I promise you." "Thank you." Hermione breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, Abe approached Norbert, using his physical advantage to look down at the Norwegian ridgeback coldly. Norbert, refusing to be intimidated, prepared to take flight. However, Abe struck first, his white claws descending fiercely with the force of thunder. Boom! The strong wind hit Norbert's face, forcing him to take several steps back before he could react. Feeling the severe pain, Norbert's eyes filled with anger, and he prepared to unleash a breath of fire. But Abe was quicker, delivering an uppercut that raised Norbert's neck by several degrees. Fire breathing is a great skill, but it's useless if you can't hit your target. Although Abe envied this ability, he wasn't jealous. He knew that with time, he would acquire more skills, and dragon breath would be just one of them. Boom! The blazing dragon flames shot straight to the ceiling, but Norbert, still young, had limited lung capacity, and the dragon's breath dissipated within half a meter. "My God!" Ron exclaimed, eyes wide in disbelief. "Norbert can't lose. He's a dragon." "Is now the time to care about that?" Harry said, exasperated. "Hagrid, you better stop them quickly. You live in a wooden house. If Norbert keeps this up, we'll have to fight a fire." "Wait a little longer. My Norbert won't lose," Hagrid said, eyes sparkling. Dragons are the most dangerous magical creatures. He couldn't believe his fire dragon would be no match for an unknown magical creature. Harry's mouth twitched. Hagrid often lost his calm around magical animals. If he were strong enough, he would have stopped them himself. The battle between the two young dragons continued, but it was unexpectedly one-sided. Norbert had almost no strength to fight back, and was beaten several times by Abe. When Norbert's eyes were full of stars, Abe flipped him over, pinning him down. Abe's hind legs stepped on Norbert's wings, and his front paws pummeled Norbert's head. Boom! Norbert shook his head and lay powerlessly on the table. After the battle, Abe strutted up to Hermione as the victor, then turned and gave Hagrid a contemptuous look, as if to say, "Your dragon is not as powerful as mine." Hagrid didn't seem to notice. He walked up to Norbert and stroked the whimpering baby dragon. "Hiss! Why are you pinching me?" Ron asked, looking at Harry in complaint. "It's okay. It doesn't look like a dream," Harry said, sneering. "But how is it possible? The Norwegian ridgeback lost." "It must have been Norbert's carelessness," Hagrid said, trying to find an excuse for his fire dragon. First of all, Norbert is still young. He was born less than an hour ago and encountered a larger Abe. Norbert, who is more than twice Abe's size, naturally has some advantages. However, the confined space and the melee nature of their combat put Norbert at a disadvantage. More importantly, Norbert's wings were of no use in this situation. As a dragon, Norbert's true strength lies in the combination of flames and flight. All things considered, if they were the same age, Norbert would undoubtedly be the winner. It seems to make sense, Ron nodded. Judging by Abe's size and the amount of food he eats, he must be at least 3 years old. Just when everyone thought the matter had been settled, Norbert suddenly unleashed a dragon's breath, disregarding any sense of fair play, and knocked Abe, who had declared victory, away. The sneak attack was disgraceful, but Norbert had been beaten too badly to care. Completely defeated and bruised, Norbert's pride as a dragon had been deeply wounded. Which dragon could tolerate such humiliation? "My God!" Hagrid exclaimed, his eyes wide as he watched the white figure of Abe being flung from the table. He was momentarily at a loss. Harry and Ron were equally stunned. Wasn't it over? What just happened? A sneak attack? Hermione shouted anxiously, rushing over to check on Abe's condition. Chapter 55. Switching Battle Modes. As Hermione approached, she found that Abe was unharmed, though parts of his clothes were scorched. This was a stark contrast to what she had expected from being burned by dragon flames. While she felt relieved, she also noticed the burning anger in Abe's eyes. "Roar!" Abe bellowed at Norbert, this time with much greater force. Simultaneously, his body began to change. A layer of smooth white scales appeared on his skin, his claws extended a few inches, and his teeth grew sharper, transforming him into a more formidable beast. Everyone's eyes widened at the sight, and they all swallowed nervously. "Hagrid, you know a lot about magical creatures. Do you know what kind of species this transforms into?" Harry asked anxiously. "I don't know," Hagrid replied, his tone serious. "There are indeed some magical beasts that can transform, but Abe isn't one of them. Moreover, Abe is obviously a cub, and there are very few creatures with this ability at such a young age. The situation is not good. Its current state is clearly for fighting, and it seems really angry," Hagrid added, his face growing more concerned. "So what?" Ron asked. "What can we do? Stop them," Hagrid said, picking up his umbrella and casting a spell at Abe. But Abe, now fully alert, easily dodged it. Ignoring Hagrid, he ran to the table at an incredible speed and slapped Norbert's head hard. At the critical moment, Norbert spread his wings and flew into the air. Abe's blow missed, but everyone remained tense, noticing the clear paw print left on the table. Hagrid's heart grew heavier. The power of that blow was several times stronger than before. If it had connected, Norbert would have been seriously injured. Abe looked up at Norbert flying above him, gritting his teeth in anger and making a gurgling sound. Norbert, feeling invincible with his ability to breathe fire and fly, was unafraid. He saw this as an opportunity to avenge the earlier beating. A ball of flame shot from his mouth, landing on the tabletop where Abe stood. The fire spread rapidly, charring half of the wooden table. Abe avoided the dragon's breath, jumping to the floor just as the flame fell. Neither dragon had gained the upper hand, but from a bystander's perspective, Norbert undoubtedly had the advantage. Unless Abe could fly, it was only a matter of time before he lost. Norbert looked down at Abe, his orange eyes full of smugness. Abe noticed the provocation and bent down, roaring angrily. He kicked his legs back, suddenly picking up speed and running around Hagrid's hut. The white figure darted across the ground, over boxes, windows, and cabinets. After a run-up, he leaped, his sharp claws sparking against the wall as he aimed for Norbert. "No!" Hagrid and Hermione yelled in unison. Harry and Ron closed their eyes, afraid to witness what would happen next. As Abe's sharp claws lunged, Norbert lost his composure for a moment. But being born a dragon had its advantages. Before his brain could react, his body instinctively moved, narrowly avoiding the blow. Abe landed on the ground, running a few steps forward to regain his balance. Norbert flapped his wings, his eyes now more serious. Initially, he had thought victory was certain, but now he realized the fight was far from over. The first fight between the two creatures was intense, showcasing the Norwegian Ridgeback's formidable reputation. However, No one anticipated that the opponent would have such an unconventional attack method. It felt almost like cheating. Unfortunately, the indoor setting severely restricted the dragon's abilities, giving Abe a tactical advantage. Outdoors, the dragon's chances of winning would have been significantly higher. As expected of my Norbert, Hagrid sighed in relief, gently patting his chest. The giant seemed to relax considerably. Abe's initial surprise attack had shocked him, but now that Norbert was prepared, such tactics would be far less effective. Hearing Hagrid's exclamation, Harry and Ron widened their eyes, bewildered by the situation that seemed unchanged. "How did this happen? Did Norbert take it down?" Ron murmured. "As expected of a dragon, its skin is really thick." "No," Hermione corrected, giving him a blank look. "It avoided the attack, probably instinctively." "That's even more remarkable," Harry added. "And of course, Abe is great too. Is it really a cub?" "Now is not the time to discuss that," Hermione said with a wry smile, moving to pick up Abe. If these two magical creatures fought again, Hagrid's hut would likely need rebuilding. But before she could take a step, Norbert swooped down, spewing a cloud of dragon flames. Abe quickly jumped back to avoid the flames and prepared to counterattack. Having endured a beating, Norbert knew the importance of keeping a distance. As Abe rushed forward, Norbert raised his flight altitude. Abe's white claw missed Norbert's wing by mere centimeters, and he fell to the ground, limbs flailing in midair, a sight both hilarious and endearing. Norbert roared provocatively, circling over Abe's head several times. Abe, frustrated by this blatant show-off, felt his body swell slightly in anger. "Hagrid, are all magical animals like this?" Hermione asked, her mouth twitching. "You said this was a riot among children, but isn't this dragon a bit too petty?" Hagrid was momentarily stunned, his eyes rolling slightly. "I've never encountered this situation before. It needs to be recorded. Also, Hermione, I must remind you that magical animals are not common. They are very rare, and ordinary wizards may never see one in their lifetime. Cubs of magical animals are even rarer, so don't expect me to know everything." "But who else can I ask besides you?" Hermione retorted. "Dumbledore. I'm sure he's seen as many magical creatures as I have, and he even has one." Hagrid paused, then immediately shut his mouth. "A what?" Harry asked, intrigued. "I can't say. It's his privacy," Hagrid replied with a smirk, raising his umbrella. "It's already quite lively tonight. Let's separate these two little guys now. Pay attention. This time I intend to use my full strength." As Hagrid finished speaking, Harry and the others sighed in relief. Despite the presence of two fighting magical animal cubs, one being the most dangerous dragon in the wizarding world, they felt reassured with Hagrid there. He might not be as powerful as Dumbledore, but his experience with magical animals was extensive, except for Abe, of course. Hagrid waved his umbrella with a smile, and a reddish light appeared at its tip. Just as he was about to cast a spell, his movement stopped abruptly. He stared ahead in astonishment, the faint red light flickering uncertainly. The tip of the umbrella also disappeared. "It's really unbelievable," Hagrid murmured. "Among magical creatures, the only one comparable to it is the noble unicorn." The three followed Hagrid's gaze in confusion, their mouths wide open in astonishment. Abe's clothes on the left and right sides were stretched out, revealing a pair of white wings. A radiant white aura shone on his skin, highlighting a divine presence. As Abe revealed his wings, he took flight, standing upright in midair and looking at Norbert. Norbert was stunned, an ominous premonition welling up in his heart. Instinctively, he spat out a mouthful of dragon's breath, but Abe didn't dodge this time. Instead, he used his wings to shield himself. The few magical energies within him formed a white magic circle, blocking the dragon's breath. Then, Abe bared his teeth at Norbert, swung his claws, and punched him. The two young dragons collided quickly in the air, but Abe was stronger than the newborn Norbert in every aspect. Although he couldn't breathe dragonfire, he still managed to overpower him. The sounds of their clash echoed from Hagrid's hut, and at the same time, Aaron rushed over, panting. Chapter 56. Is that it? Draco lay prone outside the window, watching the battle inside with great interest, completely oblivious to the figure behind him. Snap! Slapped Draco's shoulder suddenly, startling him, but before he could cry out, Aaron covered his mouth. "Don't get excited. It's me." "Aaron, you're here," Draco whispered. "How's the situation?" It's incredible that Hagrid has a Norwegian ridgeback, but what I never expected is that Abe actually has wings and is powerful enough to fight young dragons. Gift crab. Aaron held his forehead and shook his head. It's still exposed. After speaking, he walked to the wooden door, ready to kick it open. Wait a minute, Draco hurriedly stopped him, a meaningful smile on his face. A holy war between magical animal cubs is going on in this hut. I suggest we wait until they decide the winner before we go in. There is also a giant and 3 Gryffindors inside. By then, my Abe may be bullied. Aaron ignored him and kicked the door. Boom! The wooden door shook violently, and a layer of dust fell from above. The sound immediately aroused the vigilance of everyone in the hut. Hagrid first glanced at Norbert and Abe, who were fighting in midair, and then made a silent gesture to Harry and the others. Who is it? I slept all night. Come back tomorrow if you have something to do. Aaron Gaius, my pet should be in the house now. I advise you to open the door for me, or don't blame me for being rude. It's over now. Hearing this, Hermione's face turned pale instantly and she slumped weakly on the chair. Harry and Ron were also anxious, but more guilty. Didn't they just abduct a fantastic beast cub worth more than a cat? But it's only been over an hour. They were caught in the act, which is unreasonable. Calm down first, don't talk. Hagrid comforted. He may not know that you are here too. Harry, quickly take out the invisibility cloak and lead the 2 of them into it. I'll make Norbert and Abe dizzy again. As long as he doesn't find out, we have a chance to hide it. Hagrid, you have to be careful when you deceive yourself and others. Hermione smiled wryly. I don't know how we were exposed, but if Aaron wasn't sure, he wouldn't have come here at this time. Boom. The sound of kicking the door sounded again, hitting the hearts of several people hard. Then at least try it first. The door here is still quite strong. They won't come in so quickly. Harry, hurry up. All right. Harry nodded immediately and took out the invisibility cloak. Hagrid also pulled out his wand. Although he didn't want to hurt the magical animal cubs, he couldn't care less now. If caught, not only he but Harry and the others would also be punished. So, these 2 little guys should sleep a little longer. However, the next moment, a spell sounded outside the door, and everyone was stunned. Alohomora. The unlocking spell, as the name suggests, can open door locks. Although it has no offensive power, it can have miraculous effects at certain times, such as now. After casting the unlocking charm, the latch of the wooden door quickly fell off. Everyone in the hut watched the latch fall, and their hearts were cast in a haze. Outside the hut, Aaron sneered, kicked again, and the door opened completely. He ignored the messy house and the stunned people, directly locking his eyes on the 2 dragons fighting in the sky. The corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. Abe, who had switched to combat mode, was beating the Norwegian ridgeback furiously, punching and kicking, making the opponent miserable. There were more bruises on the jet-black skin, and even the wings were a little asymmetrical. It was simply bullying the children by taking advantage of their size. Abe, come here, Aaron yelled. Abe, who was beating happily, suddenly paused, kicked Norbert to the table, and then flew to the ground. It quickly retracted its wings, and the white scales on its body also quickly faded. Fangs and claws retracted simultaneously, revealing a harmless and cute appearance. Abe glanced at Aaron with some trepidation and lowered his proud head in an aggrieved manner. The owner had reminded him not to reveal his identity, but he had forgotten this warning less than 2 hours after leaving. Okay, who are you going to show this picture to? Aaron said, dumbfounded. He immediately picked Abe up, observed him carefully, and breathed a sigh of relief after confirming that he was not injured. Wow! Abe pointed distressedly at the charred parts of his hat and clothes, then at the fire dragon he had beaten, which could hardly stand up. He was simply expressing that he did not expose himself intentionally. Aaron laughed angrily at this action and immediately placed a new set of pet clothes in front of Abe. Put it on first. Let's forget about this time, but why don't you understand? Abe nodded repeatedly, standing on the ground with his 2 hind paws, and put on the new clothes in a very human-like manner. Draco, please close the door. Okay. Draco nodded with a smile, turned around, and latched the door. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione saw that Draco Malfoy was also there, they immediately figured out some things they hadn't understood. This guy must have followed them sneakily and then told Aaron their secret. Otherwise, there was no explanation. Now they just hoped that Draco had come later and hadn't heard about the Sorcerer's Stone and Snape, or it would be a lot of trouble. Aaron walked to a chair, wiped the dust off it casually, sat down with a blank face, and crossed his legs. The oppressive feeling instantly lifted. I'm very angry right now, but I'm still willing to talk to you calmly. Explain yourselves. I give you a chance to explain. The group looked at each other but did not speak. Don't want to explain? Or are you too embarrassed to explain because you know what nasty things you did? I think it's probably the latter, Draco said gloatingly. Gryffindors are like this. It's almost normal for them to dare to act, but not to take responsibility. Aaron, listen to my explanation first. Hermione gritted her teeth. Actually, stop. Don't talk yet. No matter what the reason is, some things are done when they are done, without explanation. And what you say may not be true. I can't believe you anymore, Aaron said with some disappointment. Hearing this, Hermione's eyes turned red, but she tried her best not to cry. This matter was indeed dishonorable on her part, and she had nothing to say. Please explain. Aaron looked at the other three. Let me hear what reasons you can come up with. After a few seconds, still no one spoke. Don't want to tell me? It's really interesting. Let a girl charge forward and take the blame. You guys are really something. That's right. Draco couldn't help but applaud. I still admire Hermione Granger in this regard. Although she deceived Aaron, she is at least more responsible than the famous Potter and Weasley. Us. What? Does Weasley have something to say? Draco smiled provocatively. You had already put Abe on the table when I came, and I didn't know anything about it before, so I'm still curious about your plan. Can you tell me how you kidnapped Abe? When Ron heard this, he clenched his fists angrily. Malfoy pointed at his nose and scolded him. He felt particularly aggrieved, but didn't know how to refute. It would be too embarrassing to tell them that they had given Abe a sleeping pill to bring him here. While feeling humiliated, Harry secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from the time, Draco hadn't heard the conversation about the Sorcerer's Stone, which was a blessing in disguise. That's enough. I asked them to do it, Hagrid said helplessly. I couldn't hold back the curiosity in my heart. I wanted to see what kind of species Abe was, so anyway, sorry, very sorry. What does the Ministry of Magic need to do if an apology is useful? Aaron said coldly. Besides, you only apologize because I caught you. If I didn't know about it, would you just pretend that nothing happened? You should be glad. Was not injured. Otherwise, this matter would never have been left alone. Yes, that's it, Draco said, though his expression turned peculiar. Aaron, do you mean to just forget it? Isn't that too lenient for them? They almost sold Ab. No, to be precise, they did sell him, but there was a minor mishap during the process. I understand what you're getting at, Aaron replied, lifting Ab by his two front paws. Honestly, I don't want to just let it go either, but Ab's identity has been exposed. If things escalate, do you think we can keep Ab's identity a secret? I hadn't considered that, Draco admitted. But what kind of magical creature is he? You'll find out when he grows up. It's not convenient to say now, Aaron sighed, glancing around the room. His gaze lingered on the Norwegian ridgeback for a moment longer. We need a confidentiality agreement. No one can speak of what happened tonight. Hagrid's eyes lit up. That's indeed the best way to solve the problem. This way, Norbert can also be kept safe. That's a good idea, Draco agreed. How about using the Fidelius charm? You could make Malfoy your secret keeper. Chapter 57, Written Agreements and Magic Spells. There's no need for that, Aaron said flatly. How long can you hide the identity of that dragon? With the growth rate of dragons, its size will be several times its current size in less than 2 weeks. After a month, your room may not be able to accommodate it. At that time, can you manage it like you do now? Even if you could, it would probably set your log house on fire if it sneezed accidentally. Then Hogwarts would be well aware that the keeper of the forest farm has a dragon. I also know that I can't keep it forever, Hagrid said dejectedly. But I'm not willing to throw it away like this. I can't do that. This is your business, not mine. It is completely superfluous to use the loyalty curse on a secret that is destined to be impossible to keep. Abe, Harry looked at Aaron and said, It's also a magical animal. It looked like this when school started, and it's still like this now, almost unchanged. But when Abe fought, he grew a lot, but now he has changed back to the original. What do you want to say? Aaron asked, though Hagrid seemed to understand something. A gleam of hope appeared in his eyes as he begged. You must have a way to let magical animals control their size. Can you help Norbert, this Norwegian ridgeback, also manage it? Heh, your imagination is really rich. Abe is a magical animal. I remember that there are creatures in magical animals that can control their own size. Although there are not many, there are indeed one or two mentioned in the classics in the restricted section. To give a fairly simple example, werewolves transform on the night of the full moon. Also, I don't understand where you got the nerve to ask me to do such a thing. Don't forget you just kidnapped my pet. Sorry, I was in a hurry. Let's talk about the confidentiality agreement you mentioned first. What are you going to do about it? It's very simple. Aaron took out a piece of parchment and a pen from his pocket and began to write. I found out about the identity of Abe's magical beast in February 1992, but with all my reputation, I promise not to reveal its identity in any way. Hagrid picked up the parchment and looked at it carefully, his expression becoming strange. This piece of paper was just ordinary paper, and the content of the agreement couldn't be simpler. It seemed a bit too casual. That's it? Are you sure? Of course, you just need to sign. Aaron, isn't this a little too hasty? Draco frowned. Even if you don't use magic props, you should at least write a more detailed agreement. What if they made Abe's identity public? If they really want to do this, you can't stop them with any spell, Aaron said meaningfully. There is no shortage of wizards in the magic world who are willing to risk their lives to violate a contract. Besides, I made a unilateral agreement. They know Abe's identity, but we don't know about Norbert at all. The discovery of a fire dragon in the future has nothing to do with us. In other words, as long as we don't tell anyone about Hagrid raising a dragon, they won't turn against us. More importantly, it is impossible for Abe to remain hidden forever. It can be exposed today, or it may be exposed tomorrow. The magic world will know its existence sooner or later. No matter how detailed the agreement is, it cannot restrain the entire magic world. So that's the case, Draco nodded. Then I'll sign it first. You don't need to. Aaron waved his hand and looked at Hagrid meaningfully. Your mastermind, come and sign first. Hagrid picked up the pen with a guilty conscience, signed his name on the paper, and then passed the agreement to Harry. Harry and Ron, knowing they were in the wrong, hesitated for a moment before signing one by one. Finally, it was Hermione's turn. She lowered her head, her pupils slightly red, and sat motionless on the chair. Granger, it's your turn, Draco said flatly. I see, Hermione replied, her voice trembling slightly. She sighed, wiped the corners of her eyes, and tremblingly picked up a pen to write down her name in crooked letters. The whole process lasted more than half a minute, during which she didn't dare to lift her head, fearing to see Aaron's disappointed eyes. After signing, she felt empty inside, as if she had lost something. Okay, everyone, see you tomorrow, Aaron said, putting away the parchment blankly. He picked up Abe and walked out the door. I hope this is the first and last time. Take care of yourselves. Draco followed behind Aaron, but suddenly stopped after a few steps. He turned around proudly to look at the others in the cabin. It's a wonderful night, although the moon isn't too round. My mood is inexplicably good. Malfoy, Ron clenched his fists. You don't have to be so weird. Weird? Where am I being weird? Please, Weasley, point it out for me. Thank you very much. Okay, it's pointless to tease them. Let's go. Wait a minute. Draco sneered and then looked at Hermione. Don't worry, I won't call you a mudblood again, but I won't lose to you in the final exam. Hermione rarely refuted but nodded weakly. Draco, pay attention to your demeanor as a pure-blood wizard, Aaron said, exasperated. He didn't want to stay any longer, so he opened the door and walked out. Hey, wait for me! Draco hurriedly followed, not forgetting to close the door for Hagrid. After the two left, the atmosphere in the cabin became heavy. Harry, Ron, and Hagrid all looked at Hermione tacitly. Apart from losing face, they had nothing to lose tonight, but Hermione was different. She probably felt very uncomfortable. Hermione, Harry wanted to comfort her but didn't know what to say. Cry if you want to cry. Don't hold back, Hagrid sighed melancholically. We're all friends here. No one will laugh at you. Hermione raised her head slightly, her red eyes beginning to well up, and crystal tears fell like broken beads. Sorry, Ron said with self-blame. It's all my fault. I forced you into this plan. It's not entirely your fault. Harry patted him on the shoulder. I'm also half responsible. Didn't you say it was safe? Hermione whimpered. Now I won't have the face to see him in the future. Are you happy? Harry and Ron couldn't lift their heads in embarrassment. Before they acted, they had made sworn promises, but they hadn't anticipated getting caught. They just wanted to get Hermione out without any conditions. It's all Malfoy's fault, Ron pursed his lips. If he hadn't been the informer, everything would have gone well. Not entirely, Hagrid interjected. Abe and Norbert got into a fight before Aaron and Malfoy kicked the door, and part of his clothes were charred. Even if Malfoy hadn't come, tomorrow would have been the same. You heard it, Hermione said regretfully. I shouldn't have helped you. He trusted me so much, entrusting me with the fantastic beasts, but woo. Don't cry, Hermione. We were wrong. There will be no next time, really, Harry said incoherently. He had never coaxed a girl before. Ron was also distraught and didn't know what to do. He had experience coaxing his own sister, but the situation was completely different now. It wasn't like saying a few nice words and giving a few candies to make everything better. They had really messed up this time. No matter how heartless he was, he knew he had wronged Hermione, but he didn't know how to make it right. Hagrid didn't feel very well either. Although he hadn't participated in the action, he was the cause of the incident. In Aaron's words, he was indeed a mastermind. Oh, apologize. Hagrid, you're confused, Ron smiled wryly. If an apology could solve the problem, Harry and I would have already apologized. It's not you, it's Hermione. Hermione hasn't apologized to Aaron yet. I think at least she should admit her mistake and express her attitude. But as you saw just now, he didn't give Hermione a chance to speak at all, Harry said. That's better than doing nothing and just crying here, Hagrid said. Yes, you're right. Hermione wiped the tears from her face and managed to pull herself together. I have to catch up and apologize to him, whether he accepts it or not. Even if he scolds me, it's better than saying nothing. Just figure it out. Let's go. It's best not to wait until tomorrow. Apologize before he returns to the dormitory, Hagrid advised. The sooner, the better. Understood. Thank you, Hagrid. Hermione thanked him, quickly opened the door, and chased after Aaron. We're going too, said Harry, about to pull Ron along. Don't drag me. I'm not going, Ron said stubbornly. Draco is probably next to Aaron. If I go, I might lose my life. Ron, even Hermione, a girl, has the courage to apologize. If we two boys don't go, what's the difference between us and cowards? If I were Malfoy, I would look down on you even more. Hearing this, Ron gritted his teeth. If I lose face, then so be it. The two made their decision and quickly ran towards the door. However, within a few steps of running out of the hut, their speed slowed down, and their expressions became particularly unnatural. Filch was waiting for them outside with a lantern, and Mrs. Norris squatted obediently at his right foot. To make matters worse, Professor McGonagall stood beside him, looking disappointed. Chapter 58, Double the Score Gap. Ha ha, there are still fish that slip through the net, Filch sneered. But I'm not lucky. I have to fall into the trap myself. Good evening, both of you, Professor McGonagall said with a stern face. What are you doing standing there stupidly? Why don't you hurry over here? Harry and Ron felt incredibly unlucky. Although they had gathered information from the professor who designed the mechanism to protect the Philosopher's Stone tonight, overall, it was not worth the trouble. They walked up to Professor McGonagall anxiously, first lowering their heads, then looking at Aaron and Draco suspiciously. Filch usually patrolled the castle, so why had he come to Hagrid's place suddenly tonight, and why was he accompanied by Professor McGonagall? They didn't think it was a whim. It was definitely an informer. Don't look at us like that. We were caught by Filch and Professor McGonagall just a few steps out, Aaron said disdainfully. So don't use your suspicious eyes to insult our noble character. It's all thanks to Mrs. Norris, Filch said proudly. She found Aaron, then told me, and I called Professor McGonagall. In fact, I should have gone to Professor Snape, as he is the head of Slytherin, but his office was a little far away. But now it seems that they accidentally found the wrong person. There are actually 3 Gryffindors and 2 Slytherins. 3-2, Professor McGonagall. I don't know how you plan to deal with it. Detention, all of you, Professor McGonagall said firmly. But before I do that, I have to figure out why. What are you doing here at night? Don't you know that students are not allowed to walk around the campus at night? Professor, let me tell you, Draco said with a sneer, stepping forward. Although we were out at night, there is a reason for this. Of course, I'm talking about me and Aaron, not Potter, Weasley, and Granger. Are you trying to excuse the 2 of you? Professor McGonagall said. Don't think about it. No matter what the reason is, you cannot escape detention. The corner of Draco's mouth twitched, and he inadvertently caught a glimpse of the half-smile expressions on the faces of Harry, Ron, and Hermione, which annoyed him. Professor, this evening, when Crabbe, Goyle, and I were about to return to the common room, we happened to see 3 furtive figures. It is understandable to follow up and take a look out of curiosity. Of course, we respect the school rules very much and plan to return to the dormitory before the curfew. Come to the point, Malfoy. Also, don't make it sound so noble. It's not very fair for you to follow others. Professor, I admit that my actions were out of line, but I don't regret it. Draco said indifferently. Tonight, he was not his usual self. Although he was not the protagonist, he could be said to be the key role that pushed the story to its climax. Although he was caught in the end, it didn't matter. He and Aaron's punishment might be inevitable, but Harry's punishment would definitely be heavier. By comparison, he felt much better. We followed them quietly to Hagrid's hut and saw Harry and the others planning to give Aaron's pet to Hagrid. What? Professor McGonagall frowned. Is what Mr. Malfoy said true? The 3 Gryffindors all lowered their heads and remained silent, and their silence was an admission of guilt. That's it, Professor McGonagall. Aaron is my best friend, and I couldn't stand him being lied to, so I sent Crabbe and Goyle back to inform him. As for the rest, I won't say much. You have disappointed me greatly. 50 points will be deducted, Professor McGonagall said angrily. You have gone too far. 50 points? The 3 of them all opened their mouths in shock. This number was overwhelming. That's 50 points. 16 or 17 points would be deducted for each person. Hermione was a little better, but Harry and Ron were devastated. Might have been a different story, Professor McGonagall said sternly. Hagrid will face severe consequences, but expulsion is not one of them. He will be on probation and will have to answer to the headmaster. Harry and Ron exchanged relieved glances, though the weight of their own punishment still hung heavily over them. Draco, on the other hand, looked less pleased, his earlier triumph now replaced with frustration. Professor McGonagall, Harry began hesitantly, we didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were just trying to help Hagrid. Intentions aside, Mr. Potter, you must understand that actions have consequences, Professor McGonagall replied, her tone softening slightly. You all broke the rules, and the punishment stands. Draco, still fuming, muttered under his breath. This is so unfair. Aaron, sensing the tension, stepped forward. Professor, if I may, I believe we all understand the gravity of our actions. Perhaps we can find a way to make amends that benefits the school? Professor McGonagall raised an eyebrow, considering his suggestion. What do you propose, Mr. Aaron? Community service, Aaron suggested. We could help with various tasks around the school, under supervision, of course. It would be a way to show our remorse and contribute positively. The professor pondered this for a moment before nodding. Very well, I will discuss this with the headmaster. In the meantime, you are all to report to Mr. Filch for your first assignment. Filch's eyes gleamed with a mixture of excitement and malice. Oh, I've got plenty of work for them, Professor. Don't you worry. As they were led away by Filch, Harry, Ron, and Draco couldn't help but feel a mix of relief and dread. They had avoided the worst, but the road ahead was still uncertain. Well, this is going to be fun, Ron muttered sarcastically. Better than losing more points, Harry replied, trying to stay optimistic. Draco remained silent, his mind racing with thoughts of how to navigate this new predicament. Aaron, however, seemed calm and collected, his earlier confidence still intact. Let's just get through this, Aaron said quietly. We'll figure it out together. As they walked down the dimly lit corridors, the weight of their actions and the consequences they faced settled over them. It was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget, and one that would shape their future decisions at Hogwarts. That won't work if anyone asks for mercy, but we definitely can't keep him here any longer. I'll discuss it with Dumbledore to see where it would be suitable to send him, Professor McGonagall said, her voice tinged with wariness. Aaron, Abe, does it really matter? I hope you tell the truth and don't have any qualms. It's really fine, Aaron replied. I've watched Abe grow up. He's one of my few family members, and I won't let him suffer any grievances. It's just a pity that the clothes my mother specially prepared for him before school started were scorched by dragon flames. Abe, sensing the moment, put on an aggrieved expression. He stretched his two paws to the top of his head and pulled out a hat with burn marks from the dragon's breath. His big eyes were covered with a layer of mist, instantly filling Professor McGonagall with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Aaron. As the head of Gryffindor, I didn't take good care of them. Abe was almost injured, and I am partly to blame, Professor McGonagall said earnestly. I'm here to apologize to you. I was negligent. I didn't expect things to be more dangerous than I thought. Confinement is definitely unavoidable as a punishment for violating school regulations, but you and Draco can have fewer points deducted as appropriate. Draco will lose 10 points, and you will lose 5 points. Chapter 59. Professor, this is not appropriate, Ron said hesitantly. Just a moment ago, he was gloating and wishing misfortune upon everyone, but now the punishment for the two Slytherins had been reduced by more than half. This drastic change left him feeling uneasy. You have the nerve to say that? All of this is because of you three, Professor McGonagall said angrily. I've never been so embarrassed by a Gryffindor student as I am today. You stole Aaron's pet and almost harmed it. If it weren't for the fact that they also violated school rules, you would be fully responsible. If you're not convinced, I can inform your father, and I believe Mr. Arthur Weasley will seek justice for you. You don't have to, Professor. Your punishment is very reasonable. I accept it wholeheartedly, Ron said immediately, his sincerity evident. The Weasley family, though not wealthy, was harmonious and happy, provided no one made serious mistakes. If his father Arthur found out about tonight's events, he might be reprimanded, but the school had already punished him. However, if his mother Molly found out, he would face her wrath for a long time, which was far worse. Filch, these children are entrusted to you, Professor McGonagall said. Understood, Professor McGonagall, Filch chuckled lightly, looking at them with dark eyes. You must think twice before violating school rules in the future, but you should be thankful that the current punishment methods are much more lenient than in the past. Professor McGonagall, can I send Abby back before being locked up? It needs a good rest, Aaron asked. Of course, it should be, Professor McGonagall replied, looking at Abby with some distress. It was hard to imagine how such a harmless and cute creature faced a fire dragon. It must have been terrified. Your punishment time is set for tomorrow night. At 11 o'clock, Mr. Filch will be waiting for you in the hall. Before that, you can take a good rest for a day and think about how to explain this to your respective houses, Professor McGonagall said. She looked at the three Gryffindors in disappointment and left without looking back. Let's go too, Aaron sighed, walking towards the castle with Ab in his arms. Hermione opened her mouth as if to speak, but hesitated and said nothing. Everyone, see you tomorrow. 15 points and 150 points, 10 times the difference. Tut, tut, tut! I've already thought of you being reduced to rats crossing the street, Draco said with schadenfreude. The three Gryffindors gritted their teeth in anger, but also felt uneasy. Slytherin's score was far ahead, and Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff had been left behind, but Gryffindor still had a chance to catch up. However, their actions tonight had wiped out that slight possibility. Back in the dormitory, Aaron sat on the bed and placed Ab opposite him with a serious expression on his face. It's okay to be exposed this time, but let this be a warning. If you are wronged, come back and tell me. I will stand up for you, but don't take any more reckless actions, understand? Aaron said. Ab nodded repeatedly, then took off its coat, revealing the charred clothes underneath. Oh, change it first. I know you are reluctant, but you still have to live, Aaron said. Abby put down its clothes and then reached into the front pockets, pulling out sweets, chocolates, lollipops, bread, apples, and pieces of jerky. Even more astonishingly, there were more than a dozen gold galleons and dozens of silver sickles inside. Half a minute later, Aaron glanced at the pile of coins and then at the pile of snacks on his bed, which was twice the size of Ab. He was speechless. He picked up an apple casually and took a bite in front of the pet. It tastes good. Confiscated. Abe wanted to cry but couldn't shed tears. He pointed at the pile of snacks, showing deep reluctance. These were saved one by him, usually by saving food, spending wisely, and showing cuteness. Still not convinced? Whoever exposed you tonight is punishment, Aaron said sternly. Abe turned, a deaf ear to it, and threw himself on his snack mountain, showing a strong possessive desire. But when he met Aaron's eyes, he felt a little guilty and carefully separated half of the snacks, hugging them tightly. This half is for you, and I will keep the other half. Nothing less. Aaron shook his head slowly. Abe's eyes became more crystal clear. He gritted his dragon teeth and divided his half again. This time it really can't be less. Aaron was amused and patted Abe's head. Then he pushed the 3/4 of the snacks back to Abe. I just want an apple. Look, it scared you. Abe was stunned for a moment, then wept with joy. He stretched out his little dragon fist and began to beat Aaron's chest playfully. Okay, be more stable in the future, or I will confiscate all your treasures, Aaron said, feigning anger. Abe stood up straight in an instant, quickly changed into another new set of clothes with the no-trace stretch curse, and stuffed the snacks and coins he had taken out back into his hoard. After the evacuation, the whole dragon felt at ease, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. Before the smile on his face dissipated, Aaron lifted him up and put him on his exclusive bed. Sleep well. You have to go to confinement with me tomorrow. Covering Abe with a blanket, Aaron also lay on his bed. But looking at the burn marks on Abe's clothes, he always felt that his dragon was at a disadvantage. Abe did beat Norbert violently, but it was because of his age advantage, relying on his physical body to crush him. If he didn't know the dragon's breath, he didn't have much advantage in terms of attack. System, open Abe's property panel. Okay.
Pet Abe analyze.
Magic energy, 304, increasing a little every day, although the potential is infinite, but now it is extremely weak. Innate ability, flying. Aaron sighed with some regret. The magic energy is only 304 points. If it is expected to evolve to the next stage naturally, it will take 196 days, which is more than half a year. But by that time, Norbert's size will have increased by at least 10 times, and it is estimated that he could kill Abe with a single paw. No matter. Add some. Evolve. The ability to breathe fire must be arranged for him, Aaron decided. He struggled for a moment, then generously invested 190 magic points, raising Abe's magic power to 494 points, leaving 6 points as a buffer. He didn't dare defeat Abe all at once. This is Hogwarts, after all. What if something happens when he evolves? The whole school would know that he had a magical animal, and he didn't want to attract too much attention. After class the next day, the students stopped when they passed by the huge hourglass that recorded the score of the houses. Some even rubbed their eyes in disbelief. With such a big change in the hourglass in less than a day, something must have gone wrong. But when they looked again, they sadly found that they were right the first time and had to accept this cruel fact. Number 1. Slytherin, 462 points, 15 points lower than yesterday's 477 points. Although they didn't know what happened, this fluctuation was not exaggerated. Number 2. Ravenclaw, 406 points. Number 3, Hufflepuff, 332 points. There was no change. But the problem was that number 4, Gryffindor, had 299 points, which was a full 449 points lower than yesterday's 748 points. This was too exaggerated and outrageous. Before the students could figure out what was going on, word got out from Slytherin. Draco himself admitted in the auditorium that he was deducted 10 points, Aaron was deducted 5 points, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione in Gryffindor were each deducted 50 points. He didn't say the specific details, but the students didn't need to know. The details were clear, and no one doubted the fairness of the matter. The points were deducted by Professor McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor House, and she would not make such a significant decision lightly. This left only one possibility. Harry and his friends had made a serious mistake. As the news spread, Harry, Ron, and Hermione found themselves ostracized, just as Malfoy had predicted. While not everyone openly scorned them, they were met with cold shoulders and disapproving looks. Gryffindor House, which had been in second place, had now plummeted to fourth. The gap was too significant to ignore. Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were also affected. Despite moving up a place in the standings, they found no joy in it because Slytherin remained firmly in first place. The Snake House had won the House Cup for 6 consecutive years, a streak that both Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff found intolerable but had to endure. In this context, they had placed their hopes on Gryffindor to finally dethrone Slytherin this school year. The scores were close enough that with a bit more effort, it seemed possible for Gryffindor to come out on top. But now, that dream was shattered. Chapter 60. Unlike Harry and the others, Aaron and Draco not only avoided blank stares after the point deduction incident, but also indirectly became heroes of Slytherin. Although Slytherin House didn't know why the two lost 15 points, it was insignificant for 2 outstanding students who could easily earn them back in a few classes. Aaron, in particular, was frequently awarded extra points in almost every class, and Draco alone had contributed more than 15 points to Slytherin's House Cup tally this semester. Replacing Gryffindor's 150 points with a mere 15-point deduction was a surefire deal. Slytherin was leading, but Gryffindor was a close second, always a threat. However, with the current score gap, unless a miracle happened, Gryffindor was destined for the bottom. Every Slytherin felt confident about winning the House Cup this year, and their tense nerves relaxed considerably. Some students even started celebrating in advance. "You really don't need to do this," Aaron said, looking at the triumphant Draco with a hint of exasperation. "After all, we also lost points. There's nothing to be proud of." "Okay, I admit I'm a bit gloating," Draco replied, unable to hide his smirk. "But everyone will know sooner or later. I just said it in advance. This incident was entirely caused by the 3 of them. For some reason, we have to keep it a secret, but I couldn't resist adding some trouble for them. I didn't expect the effect to be so obvious. Actually, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are the ones who should be the heroes of Slytherin. 150 points. Gryffindor will definitely be at the bottom this time. Aaron, would you be interested in meeting them with me? See what they do. I suggest you get a good night's sleep. We have detention tonight." "Aaron, I have to say, sleep is just to make our detention a bit easier. It doesn't matter." In contrast, it's really interesting to see Harry's frustrated face. Draco said with great interest, faintly excited at the thought of Gryffindor's star being the target of public criticism. But seeing Aaron's lack of interest, he added, "I know you don't like to add insult to injury, but this time it was their mistake. Even if you don't think for yourself, think for Abe. If it wasn't for being more powerful, it would have been bullied by Norbert last night." This. Aaron was momentarily stunned, looking at the small dragon lying on the table yawning. He sighed slightly. The little guy was too carefree. "Let's go. You have a point. You can't be too nice to some people. But do you know where they are?" "You don't need to look for them at all," Draco said confidently. "Their negative popularity has skyrocketed. They are the focus of attention wherever they go. It's easy to find them." True. As the two walked out of the common room, the first classmate they met was a Slytherin. "Millicent, do you know where Harry Potter is?" Draco asked. I saw them in the library earlier, but they're probably gone now. Except for Slytherin, the other 3 houses almost want to kill them with their eyes." "See," Draco smiled at Aaron, "I told you they would be like street rats today." "It's really pitiful," Millicent said, "but it's just as it should be. In recent years, no one has lost 3-digit points. They deserve no sympathy. I know this. These points were deducted by Professor McGonagall herself. It is absolutely fair and just. What did they do last night? Can you tell me? I promise not to tell anyone." "That won't work," Draco said confidently. "I can't tell you that they lost so many points because—" "Ahem," Aaron coughed and then gave Draco a knowing look. "Just kidding. We want to keep it a secret." "Oh." Millicent nodded thoughtfully and tactfully refrained from asking further questions. After Millicent entered the common room, Aaron looked at Draco meaningfully. What were you going to say just now? Don't get me wrong. I know how to measure my words. I just wanted to say that they steal students' belongings, and that's all. Abe is also considered our personal property, so there should be nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with talking, but don't talk nonsense. Sometimes being unable to control your mouth is more terrifying than being unable to control your hands. Understood. The two went to the library but couldn't find Harry and the others. They asked a classmate casually and were directed to the auditorium. However, when they arrived at the auditorium, they were told that Harry and his friends had moved to another location. What the hell? Can't they stay in one place for a while longer? Draco said, a little depressed. Adding insult to injury was what he had planned a long time ago. Although it was a little unkind, he couldn't help it. He had never gotten along with those people. Let alone Ron. The grievances between the Weasleys and the Malfoys could be traced back hundreds of years. Harry had made him uncomfortable in public at the beginning of the school year, usually ignored him, and often made things difficult for him. As for Hermione, she had failed her friend's trust, so it was only natural to mock her. But he never expected that these people would be as slippery as loaches, making it impossible to find them and cause trouble. This is normal. They are being criticized by everyone now, and they would probably die of shame if they stayed in one place. If I were them, I would hide in a place where no one could find me or where there are few people. The Gryffindor common room? Draco said thoughtfully. Hiding in the dormitory and closing the door is a good way to escape, but they can't hide forever. There is another place. Hagrid's hut, Aaron reminded. It's a better choice than the Gryffindor common room. If this is the case, then your plans may have to be postponed. After all, there is a giant protecting them. Not at all. They dare to go there? The Norwegian Ridgeback problem should not be resolved yet, right? Are they not afraid of meeting Dumbledore and being criticized again? Draco said with a twitch at the corner of his mouth. Based on what he knew about Harry and the others, all three of them should be hiding in Hagrid's hut if nothing else happened. There, they would be free from prying eyes and accusatory whispers, making it the perfect refuge. Let's go back. No matter where they are hiding now, they will always meet in the hall at night. Draco nodded, but still felt a little regretful. Today was definitely the most difficult day for Harry and the others, but tomorrow would be different. Many people would passively accept reality after a night's sleep. After a while, the limelight would gradually weaken, and their situation would be much better. After 10 o'clock in the evening, Aaron and Draco headed towards the foyer from the common room. Before they got close, they heard Harry Potter's voice from inside. Wood disagrees with me quitting the Quidditch team. He also expects me to win the game as a seeker and earn back the points. But just as a seeker, they looked at me strangely, and they didn't even call me by my name. They just called me Seeker, which felt out of place. It's okay. Everyone will forget about these things in a few weeks, Ron comforted. Fred and George also get points deducted often, but they are still very popular. They must not have been deducted 50 points all at once. Not really, Ron said angrily. Hermione and I are in a better situation. After all, our reputation is not as big as yours, but no one wants to talk to us now. They're all here. Draco walked over with a smile. I thought you were fired, but I haven't found. Malfoy, are you here to add insult to injury? Harry said angrily. Misunderstood, really misunderstood, Draco replied, walking up to Harry with a smile on his face. He continued to applaud. I came to express my thanks. You really did a great favor to Slytherin. 150 points. God knows how long it will take to earn them back. Potter, Granger, and Weasley, if you ever want to switch to Slytherin, just let me know. I'll help you. I'll even go as far as asking my dad to meet with Dumbledore and use his influence on the school board to get him to agree. You're too deceitful, Ron said angrily, pointing at Draco and preparing to rush at him for a duel. Enough, Aaron shouted. Do you think the deductions are too small? I need to remind you that Filch will be here soon.